Hi, everybody.
Hello. Still getting things together here.
Oh, I was muted.
Well, I can hear you now.
Did you guys mute me?
No.
No?
Oh, interesting.
Sometimes if you change something,
Okay, I reset the Motu.
yeah, then it
So that
goes,
probably
oh,
did
I don't see that signal there anymore, and then it'll
Gotcha.
automatically mute you.
Okay. Does it sound the same or does it sound better?
No, it sounds better to me.
Yeah, it sounds better.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love it when a
Probably.
reset works like that.
I should probably shut down some stuff on my computer here so I don't have a overload situation.
Overload.
Okay.
Isn't there a place in Kansas? Oh, no, that's at Overland, Kansas.
Overland, yeah, Overland Park.
Yeah. Oh, no. What's going on there, please? Oh, that. What do I know? I'm offline. Where did Jeff go? Oh, here he comes.
There he is.
Note to self.
7 fatal serious injuries.
Sorry,
Oh,
that was me.
so I love this mouse. It's a Logitech cordless, and I can use it on a couple different computers at once. You know, you can click the button and it'll go to one and then another. Of course, with Apple now, it doesn't matter. Like your mouse works for anything that's within about 50 feet of it. It's weird.
It's a little
Anyway.
creepy, isn't it?
Huh?
It's a little creepy.
Yeah, it's like, and then you go, well, what happened to my mouse? And you look over in the corner of your eye on your iPad, you see something moving around and go, oh, I didn't want it to go over there. But that has nothing to do with this situation. There's the little buttons on the side, and the lower
Oh, yeah, you've done
button
that
on the
before.
side usually will bring up, I forgot what Apple calls it, but like all the different open windows that you have on your machine and puts them all up on one big screen.
Okay.
And but it doesn't always work, because when I just hit that thing to bring up everything so I could
It took
pick
you
something
out?
else, it ended up just booting me out of the out of StreamYard.
There's Mohammed, Jeff. You can tell him that
Oh, Mohammed,
causing headaches.
thank you for sending the video of the Macs, but I think you sent it in a different format than you normally do, because I can't get it to open up in, I can't get it to open in anything.
Format you can use.
And I tried to change the format, to convert it to something else, and it's not working. So if you could send, and not, you don't have to do it now. I don't know if we're going to actually get to it in today's show, because we have a lot of feedback. But if you have a way to do it the way you normally send it to
Yeah.
me,
You've never had trouble before, right?
yeah, we've never had an issue with it before.
Hi,
Oh,
Aaron.
and then I don't know. Obviously, I haven't seen the one that you just sent about the Mac. If you could not put like music that is copyrighted in the background, because then I get these copyright strikes from YouTube. They're kind of persnickety.
But thanks for sending it.
But yeah, it doesn't. I don't want it to make it sound like we don't. We really do like your videos. We really do.
We love them.
But I hate that I have to like turn it all the way down and then just, without anything in the background, because, just to try to stay on the right side of the fence with YouTube.
So Captain Nick was here, and then he went out because his connection wasn't good, he was going to play around with his router, but I don't know where he is now. Steph is on her way home. Should be here in about half an hour, a little less. Unfortunately, Rick is not able to be with us. We thought we were going to have everybody here today, but something came up for him, so.
Yeah. And what else? Oh, how are
He's back.
Oh, it
our
looks cold over there.
levels?
Yeah, we've had snow.
Oh, gosh, you're loud.
Nope. It's freezing.
No, he's not freezing for me.
No,
No,
I've
it's just
just done
me.
a speed test.
He's good for me.
Okay. That means I need to
Is he
switch then.
incredibly loud for anybody else?
He's pretty loud for me.
He's
Who?
very loud.
Well,
I mean, he's
changed
naturally
it.
loud, but
Me or him?
Nick.
sorry, Captain Nick.
Captain Nick.
This one that I'm very clearly pointing at from your point of view.
I'm sorry. I should have noticed.
Well, it's funny. The balance is
That one, not that
wrong
one,
for
that
me
one.
because you're all very quiet and my background noise is very loud. So just going to check which mic I'm on.
Hi, Pierre. Or is that bonjour, Pierre? Although I think Pierre's in.
No, I'm on Black Magic.
Yeah, Aaron agrees that Nick sounds loud. Captain Nick sounds loud. Very
Well,
loud,
that's-
Mike Kuipers. Yes, I agree.
Adjusted in StreamYard.
Did you hear that, Nick? Adjusted in StreamYard?
I did hear that. Adjusted in Streamlard. Lard, the man says.
Or in Britain, it would be Stream Garden because you don't call it yard. You call
Oh,
it
yeah.
your garden.
Stream
Garden.
That's a good point. Well made.
Pierre
Okay.
from Sweden, yes. Hi,
Well,
Pierre. I
at
thought you
the
were
moment it said to automatically adjust mic volume.
Okay,
but,
well, then unclick that.
I have, and I've manually set micron. Is that any different?
It's better. It's still to me a bit
Oh,
loud,
now
but it's
brown
not.
cow.
It's not
Is
quite
that
as
any
loud.
better?
Sounds better to me.
I'm down to about quarter volume here now.
I would say it sounds good to me now, but
Mm-hmm.
everybody else, please comment.
Hello. I think it sounds good to me.
Well, you lot are still very quiet to me.
Well,
We're
turn up.
doing that just to
I
make your
am
life
turning
difficult.
up my headphone volume.
Yeah.
But it's just odd that I have to adjust it because I don't normally. I haven't
Yeah, I
changed
don't-
these settings for.
That's what these,
About
these
350
things, these audio
years.
video things, they're never the same every time.
They're
you,
flaky.
yeah.
Well, they're always the same for me. The only thing that's different is I've got a black T-shirt on.
Yeah. And
Oh,
you
so
had
what
some
you're
snow
saying
today.
it's all our fault. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah,
Yes.
me
Uh-huh.
Yeehaw.
messing about with that new mixer box, I reckon.
So, Jeff, you have a very furrowed brow. There are things coming together for you. Are everything okay over there? Down
Come
there in Roswell?
together
right,
right
now.
now
Over me.
over me. Yeah, they are. I'm switching to the hotspot.
Okay.
Just have to. Yep, that.
Yeah.
I hear that.
Good.
I hear you knocking, but you can't come in.
Oh, very good. I hear you
You're
knocking.
I
but you can't come in.
Jeff goes
Where does-
falsetto.
I hear you knocking. Okay.
Yes, Nick does know some Swedish words. You're right, Pierre. He usually knows how to order a beer in about 20 different languages.
Well, I can usually get by, yes. If necessary, I point. Ah.
Yes.
Okay.
Uh,
Hopefully.
yeah, 2 paracetamol, an ibuprofen, and a diazepam mix.
Yes, and Steffi said no alcohol with that, but I see you're ignoring that. Oh, now you did freeze a little there for me. Just a
I'm
little.
sure
I
alcohol
just switched
just
over,
enhances
and
the
he's
effect.
freezing again.
I can't do any more. I've just reset absolutely everything in
For
the
me, it
house.
was a very fleeting freeze. It was not a long freeze.
It was a flash freeze.
Yes, it was a flash freeze. Very good.
Oh, very good.
Jeff, do you
I'll do
want to
another
check
speed
the
test.
sound level of the intro?
I do want to do that, Liz.
Okay, Jeff.
Thank you.
You're welcome,
First,
Jeff.
I'll have to open up the program that I play my sounds in, which will have to be done anyway. I just feel like I just finished editing and publishing the last
Well,
show.
you did last night.
I was going to make the comment how impressive it was that after that situation, you got that thing turned around in like 48 hours.
Yeah,
Pretty
it wasn't
amazing.
fast as I wanted. Why are all these files not?
I
Found?
think he was editing as we went along. Like I think he, if I'm not wrong, he was doing sort of some editing. Like he didn't wait until it was all done on Sunday. I think.
Yeah, I did a little bit here, a little bit there, just to try to keep
A little bit everywhere.
a little bit all. What is this going on here? File not found. File not found. Well, that's no good.
Jeff came home and had a nap, and he says he's got brain fog now.
Oh dear. Okay. Well,
More
have
than
a beer.
usual.
That usually helps.
Well, I don't have a beer. Well, I do have a beer, but I've stopped drinking beer for.
What about wine? Do you have your Shadow Kirkland?
Yeah, I have some of my Bordeaux.
Shadow
Well, we can
Costco?
either go with it, Jeff, or I can phone up my provider. But I am getting the
No,
odd
you're good.
drop off in
Yeah, you're fine.
upload. Download is fine.
It's okay.
You're fine. You're fine. You're fine. You're fine. It's just now I can't figure out why. Hang on. I think I know what I need to do.
Ah, skull.
go.
Skull.
To
Skull.
Macintosh. No. I need to
What
go
is
to
that you're drinking,
Dropbox.
Captain Nick?
Hobgoblin
Oh, Hobgoblin. Hobgoblin.
Sound.
from the Witchwood Brewery.
Is that the one we went
Hobgoblin
to?
IPA. Very nice.
Jeff
we go
wants
to
to
that?
know, did you guys go there together? You and Jeff?
Yeah, I think that's the one we went to.
Okay.
The one near Nigel.
Oh, was that near Nigel, the one we went to?
I think so.
Oh.
He took us there.
You went to a distillery up there, didn't you? Did you go to a brewery too? Didn't you go
We
to
went to a brewery up there. The
we
distillery
went to a
we went to
brewery.
is
I-
near me.
Oh,
In-
okay.
Yeah, in my mind, we're apparently going a completely different direction than what was in my head. I'm all turned around.
Jeff was totally
Okay.
disoriented, obviously.
Yes. Okay, I need to make sure that this has never been a problem before, but it is today for some reason. So I'm going to say make available offline. All has something to do with Dropbox and the soundbite racks, the rack of carts. And I think that might be what the deal is. Maybe.
Okay, Mike is throwing a spanner into the works here. He's saying that Liz and Nick sound about even.
Bit low for me.
And
How low can you go?
Jeff and
Well,
yeah,
I'd say so. It sounds like you're muttering in your beard, Jeff.
Hello, hello.
I don't know what you're talking about.
well, he is
Captain
that. He
Nick.
is muttering.
Is it? Well, I have the same situation as Nika has, and I haven't changed a thing, but everything has changed,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Usually at this point, Steph says the cleaning ladies came in. Did your cleaning ladies come in?
Oh yeah, that must be what it was.
That's usually her excuse.
Okay, thank you, Super Fred Driver. Super Fred Driver, is that Fred? No. Is that somebody else?
I haven't heard from Fred for a long time.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. He must be on some really long secret missions or something.
So you went with the mustachioed pilot rather than the young lady pilot.
Yes, I like that one better.
Noted. Your preference is noted.
Micah approves of your level now, Jeff.
Thank you, Micah.
Hi, Neil Lanwarn. So we getting close, guys? We getting close?
Well, I'm trying to work out this issue. Sorry, Liz.
Oh, that's okay.
What about
I have
me,
to
Micah?
have sound files to play for
I thought you'd
introducing.
Sorry, I
everybody.
thought you'd gotten there.
Nope. I'm not getting anywhere.
Nick, C,
Okay,
can
now
You,
this one's not found either.
Nick, C, can you talk? Because Mike is saying he needs to hear your levels. here.
Yeah. Hey, Micah.
Yeah.
I'm typing up these. I started. So somebody sent some feedback about the engine failure control constant speed prop thing we talked about a few weeks ago.
Yes, correct.
And I just watched a webinar. Tom Turner, the same guy I talked about last time, just did a webinar on engine failures. And I was like, oh, that would be a good source of some facts or some
okay.
stats.
Oh,
And
Nick,
I-
C, you're good. Your level's good.
Okay. Does that
You
mean
can
want me
keep
to stop
talking if you
Nope,
want.
nope, that's fine. I'll stop. I can
No,
take
no,
a hint.
keep going. No, keep going.
No, I just ended up with 2 pages of these engine failure notes or stats from the webinar.
Wow.
Cool.
Sam agrees Tom Turner is a great instructor.
Yeah, definitely. The moral of the story is the likelihood of a single engine piston airplane failure failing because of the pilot is still much higher than because of anything else.
Equipment.
Yeah. I shouldn't say much higher, but it's very even. It's not like 90% of the time the engine blows up and 10% of the time the pilot does something.
I'm sorry. I have to go through every one of these files and point get the path
Yep.
fixed.
Do what you got to do.
That makes sense.
Got to get back on the path.
Get on back on the path. Why did it change though? I don't get it. It's never done this before.
Just to challenge you, just to annoy you. That's it.
Yeah. Come on, Captain.
So, Captain Nick, is it next week you go to the Isle of Wight?
The Isle of Wicket.
Isle of
Yes.
Wicket? Yeah.
Yes, it is this week's time, basically.
Do you have to make a reservation to get on the ferry, or you just drive down
Yep.
there and
No, you have to get a ticket on the ferry,
right?
which they have done for me. Very
Oh,
nice
nice.
people.
Very nice. I did look at the hotel, and it looks very nice. Looks like a lovely place.
So I don't know how much it costs to put the car on, but I think it's over £100. So
Really? Oh, wow.
Wow.
yeah, I think so.
Our cars over here are much more than 100 pounds. They're in the thousands of pounds generally. A 100-pound car doesn't even sound safe.
Made
Well,
of
I
cardboard.
mean, it is an Audi, so cheap and cheerful.
Oh man.
Oh, my.
Oh my.
Everybody's a comedian.
This is really starting to irritate me. I'm sorry, people. Where is your sound? Your intro? Oh, come on. What else would I call that file? Kevsky? No. Let's see what's in there. Captain Nick.
That sounds like it.
That's it. Open. Save.
I
Wow.
needed someone to come and give me a neck massage.
Massage, yeah. That sounds nasty, Nick.
I don't know why.
Wow.
I guess it's
Is
nerve
that
that
loud
gets
for you
triggered.
guys?
Yeah, I've got
No.
one that every now and then goes on me, but
I mean, it almost sounds like you're playing it through a different speaker and your microphone is picking it up.
Yeah, it
sounds
was
very
before.
quiet
See if
and
it
weird.
1,000.
is it still
yeah,
sounding like
sounds,
that?
Yeah, it sounds weird.
What?
Doesn't it, audience?
Huh.
1,000.
Well, why would it be doing that?
Oh man, Tim Van Ram, I got to do that too with my junk drawer. I've got a junk
me
drawer
see.
that's so full of junk that it's ridiculous.
Got some junk in your junk drawer.
Nothing interesting, I can tell you. Just keep throwing stuff in there, and it's almost to the point I can't close it. Well, I'm making you laugh anyway, Jeff. That's good.
I don't know why you're not.
There you go.
Better. That's good. Yeah.
That sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's hear this one.
Maybe it's just a Captain Nick problem. Let's
1,000.
point the blame that
Can you hear that
direction.
one?
Hear it. It just sounds echoey or something, but it's probably just fine. It's probably okay.
Well, why would it sound echoey?
Well, not echoey. It's just that it sounds hollow, or I don't know how to describe it.
1,000.
Huh. Okay. still have to do one more. Sorry.
That's okay.
Actually, more than one more because I got to get the news. I need to get the New York City. I need to get radio. Why? I'm sorry, people. This is really frustrating me because I don't know what's going on here. Why all of a sudden?
Just do what you gotta do.
Dang it.
I think Nick has an issue now too.
Great.
I'm just pressing buttons for the heck of it.
Nice.
Ooh.
And we thought we were thinking this was so great because Jeff was back home. He didn't have to set things up out on the road and stuff.
Ah.
Oh,
That's
well.
dangerous.
Oh well.
Now, do you have a complete rig at home, Jeff, and then a separate set of equipment you move around, or do you like destruct your home rig when you go on trips?
I use some of it. I use everywhere, regardless of where I am, and then some of it, like the big screen and the Mac Mini, I'm using here in the apartment. But the interface and the microphone and that kind of stuff, I'll use with my MacBook Air on the road. If that makes sense.
Okay.
So the
Yeah.
computer's different.
Yeah.
And it's been kept seamlessly. So when I make changes to something on the MacBook Air, it through Dropbox and all that kind of stuff, it's all synced up. But for some reason today, that didn't work.
It's unsynced.
Now it's not.
it's
And it's pissing me
desynced.
off.
Whoa. What's
That a loud one?
A little loud, yeah.
That was loud.
Okay. That's because I was playing it through my Finder. I just wanted to make sure it was the right file. Okay, now I'm going to play it through Soundbite. Was that much lower
Yeah, that's
volume?
better. That's better.
Yep.
Does it still sound hollow?
No, that one sounded
Sounds
okay. didn't it?
okay.
Okay. All right, and I just need to get Hampshire and New York City.
Do you need to get Steph's in anticipation of her arrival?
Yeah, I got to get hers too. Or maybe I'll just not play hers.
Okay.
Or is she going to be... No, she's going to be here soon too.
She'll be
She's
here
gonna be
soon.
here.
Yeah,
Might
she
be here
might be
before
here
we
before
start.
we get started. Exactly.
Dang it. I mean, that's a good thing. I'm not... That didn't sound right.
The truth comes
Dang
out.
it.
Dang it.
I was hoping she wouldn't be here.
I think I typed something to Jeff the other day that said dag nabbit or something. I really
Dag nabbit.
Dag nabbit.
dag
No.
nabbit.
Gosh darn it. Or,
No, something gall darn it.
Gall
Gall
darn.
darn it.
Gall darn.
Gall darn.
Darn.
yeah.
Gall darn. I was really using my swear. I was getting my swear on. Not. Oh, Nick's disappeared into the. He just went really tiny. Oh, he's back.
Doctor. He's playing with his A10.
He's playing with his what? With his what?
The big gun on his
A10
A10?
Mini.
Oh, he froze.
Yeah.
Just based on what you're saying, I don't really see what he's
I
doing.
can
I'm just,
shrink up. Or I can shrink down.
Nick is easily bored. He needs to keep his mind active, or he just.
Oh, that's true. I'm half asleep already.
Yeah, I can tell.
All these drugs.
I just started
Beer.
watching Star Trek Next Generation, and what you just did there was about the level of special effects they have on the show.
In Hartford, Hereford,
Yep.
and Hampshire.
That sounds good.
okay.
Cackalacky!
Yeah. I know. Loud. Sorry.
That's okay. That's all right.
Cackalacky!
That better?
A little better.
Cackalacky!
It's a bit quiet now.
That's good to me.
And doctor stuff is... Where is hers? Right there. And lower it. That okay?
Mm-hmm.
And... Oh, got to get Radio Roger back.
New York. Yeah. New York City. Did you get that one?
Where's New York City? Oh. New York City.
Tim Van Ram says it's high time the chat room folks came up with their own walk-up music.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. Send it to me.
Yeah, we have 2
Make my
hours
life
of
more
walk-up
complicated.
music and 1 hour of show.
I just typed in for my search chat room. No, New York City, Jeff.
You are having trouble focusing, aren't you?
I am.
I'm glad you're not flying.
No,
at the
that's not the
moment.
right one.
Oh dear.
New York City, paste to.
New York City!
Okay, and then Dr. Steph, Kakalaki, Hampshire. I need to move that one here. And News Stinger. And then I just got to find Radio
Feedback.
Rogers, and then we'll be ready
Do
to
you,
go.
need do you need the feedback bumper?
I think that's in a different
Okay.
sound rack.
Okay.
So I was getting all fancy and just putting like all the ones that I'm thinking I'm going to use for at least the first part of the show and put them into a separate rack. And that's not working out great anymore
Okay.
for some reason. I don't know why. Okay, 560. Okay, where are you? Where's 560? It's like it's not communicating with. Where'd it go?
Something's awry.
It is. Hang on, let me get my other computer.
Huh? Super Fred Driver, his music would be the sound of a hydro line blowing and then sad disappointment as we walk back inside. That sounds very sad.
No.
Oops. I think he's just poured himself some wine. Yes, yay. I think he needs that. Yay.
Okay, where is that?
Rye whiskey is a very popular liquor up here in Canada. Rye. People like drinking rye whiskey. Which is Crown Royal is rye whiskey, but there's a lot of them up here. I don't like it. It's got this sweetness to it.
Yeah. Whiskies from other countries, I seem to find they have a sort of petrol-y taste to them. I don't know quite why.
I don't like bourbon. I don't like rye whiskey. I like Scotch whiskey.
Have you ever tried Irish whiskey?
Yeah, it's sort of, I found it harsh or something. Maybe I haven't tried enough of it. I have tried it in my time. I didn't hate it, but
And of course, Japanese whiskey is getting quite a good reputation.
Suntory and all that stuff. Yeah. Oh, Nick.
But
I
a
don't
lot of
like,
it's Scotch that's shipped over in bulk,
Oh, is it? Oh, I didn't know that.
used as a base. Yeah,
I didn't know
they
that.
cheat a bit, or have been known to cheat a bit.
There are a couple of distilleries here that make apparently very high quality, supposedly like Scotch whiskey, but I've never tried them. They're very expensive because they make very small batches of them.
Oh, okay.
Maybe next time I come over, I'll bring you one, Nick. You can try
Well,
one.
not if they're very expensive. I wouldn't do
Hi,
that.
Nigel Ward. We're having a few technical hiccups to get going here. We're
Yeah.
still in the pre-show. No, we're still grunting and groaning.
Come on. Starting to upset me.
You're starting to piss me off.
Starting to piss me. Now I'm getting a beach ball.
Oh, great. Oh, good.
I think I know what's going to happen now. It's going to play really loud in Apple Music, which I didn't want it to do. All right, Nick has given up.
Yeah, he's walked away. He's gone.
What happened? to all the racks and soundbite?
French whiskey. Interesting.
All the windows are gone.
Oh boy.
Application not responding.
Tom T. Home. Heard that name in a long time.
Oh my gosh. All that work I just did?
It's gone.
Gone.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Well, I can always put it in post.
Maybe that's what you're going to have to do, Jeff.
Yep. And figure out what's going on with this stupid thing. Just lovely. Just lovely. Damn it. One more thing. Let me check.
Captain
Sorry,
Nick,
everybody.
where are you? Captain Nick. Paging Captain Nick.
Where's my Dropbox?
Oh, Captain Nick hasn't passed out and fallen on the floor or something. All
Do
the
you hear any
drugs he's on.
slurping from the dogs?
No. Trying to waken him up.
Yeah.
No. I didn't hear a big... Oh, Steffi's here.
Hi. Looks like you guys haven't.
We've been waiting for you.
Well,
Oh,
yeah.
were you?
We're ready to start.
No.
Finally.
Jeff's been having some... Jeff's not in a good place.
Yeah,
right
that's
now.
exactly what we did. Waiting
Jeff's
for you.
cleaning
Technical
ladies must have
issues?
come in because... he's
They turned
been
off everything.
Yeah,
like,
he's
happens
been
in my
having
house.
issues.
I don't even know how that happens. I'm like, the button is on the back of the computer. Are you
it's
cleaning the back of the computer?
Yeah, it's weird because the cleaning ladies came in and cleared everything off his computer. Then he fixed it all. And like 2 minutes ago, they snuck in while he was in the room and
did it
wiped
again.
out the
Gone
work.
again.
Wiped
And he
out
didn't
all
even-
the work he just
He didn't
did.
even see them. They just were like,
Extremely rude people.
Snackled at the end of my fingers.
At this point, I can't even tell if he's playing along with our joke and talking about the rude
So
cleaning
it
ladies.
sounds
or
like
if we're the
Steffi's
rude
going to have
people.
to add all the music bumpers and everything in post because he can't play them right now. So
oh, well,
just so you're prepared.
well, okay. Trackpad battery is low. Replace or recharge the battery soon.
Good.
Should I just see how long they're really going to last for? At some point,
Yeah,
I'll just not be able to like move my cursor around anymore.
Make a note on your calendar that they gave you a warning today and see if in 6 months.
No, I
it's
should
still-
change. If I get that warning, it means I should change them now because they're not going to last through the show.
All right, change them.
Yeah.
All right. Hold on.
God bless it. This is really making me thirsty. These pretzels are making me thirsty.
Shingles doesn't care, Jeff.
I know. Shingles.
Oh, yeah, just twist the knife, Liz, when you can't play it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just going to do them all. I'll just do them all myself, like audibly. Shingles doesn't care.
Shingles doesn't care.
doesn't care.
There it is.
Kakalaki.
On that window, everything works.
I got to change my batteries. I'm not going to be able to use my mouse.
Oh, that's fine. I'm still trying to figure out why things aren't working. This
I'm
has
going to
never
open my new
happened
box of
before.
shoes here, too.
Ooh, new running shoes?
Yes, new shoe day.
New shoe day. I got some new sandals the other day. Can't wait till it gets warm.
I think today is our last warm day before it tries to play winter again.
I think that's probably true because Monday was our last warm day.
Yeah,
And it got horrible yesterday.
yeah. It's supposed to rain all day tomorrow and like lows in the 30s or something. Haven't felt that in weeks. I'm going to be unprepared.
I think Jeff and Brent were really suffering up in Burlington, Vermont last night from the cold.
Yeah.
It was cold.
Those southern
cold.
boys aren't used to the chill.
Well, it was like feels like 15 with the wind chill.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. I mean, that's just no fun.
No.
We had a lot of wind up here lately, so it's been feeling much colder.
It was breezy here yesterday, but man, it was warm. It was like 76 degrees or something, 77.
Wow.
Yeah. It was nice. And it's still like, today was supposed to be cooler. It's 63 and it feels great out there right now. Like it's not breezy at all today. It's sunny. Like just
Fresh.
very pleasant,
Nice and
fresh.
fresh.
Everything's there's so much pollen in the air. Everything is blooming. It's very beautiful. Like lots of flowers. And they're all probably going to die when it gets cold this weekend. But
How cold is it supposed to get?
like low, close to freezing, I think on Saturday. And for like a couple days in a row. I don't think it's going to get below freezing, but
Frosty anyway.
chilly. To be chilly.
Chilly.
It will not be whatever this
You're listening to the Airline
early
Pilot Guy
spring
Show.
summer thing was that we were having. This is
How was the volume on that?
It's a little low,
Okay.
I thought.
Yeah, I think a little low.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
The view
good.
from our side of the cockpit door. WAPG.
How's that?
Yeah,
Good.
good. That's working.
Okay, so I'm running all the sound instead of from this computer, the Mac Mini. I'm running it from the MacBook Air, but I'm looking at StreamYard over here. I got a couple different computers running, so
Okay.
might get confusing.
Sounds
Probably
good.
have to unplug and replug it back into the Mac Mini after we've done the intros
Okay.
and the news, because the video audio is not going to play if I do it like this.
Are we still connected on Skype? Yes or no? After
Yeah,
all
I
you-
think so.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Well, this is different.
This box is impossible to open. It's supposed to be just be like tear apart, like it doesn't have tape or anything.
Oh yeah.
The first piece like tore apart quite easily. The rest of it is like good luck.
Yeah. They don't make it easy sometimes.
All right.
All right, let's get this going. You got your recorder going?
Not yet.
Okay.
What? No.
That doesn't sound good.
No,
Look
I'm
at my
pressing
pretty
the
new
Dr.
shoes.
Steph button and it's not working.
Dr. Steph, you're not
Oh,
working.
those look
I'm
nice,
broke.
Steph.
Yes.
Oh, neither is Captain Nick.
Oh, I'm definitely
They're
working. Don't
Pumas?
worry
Are
about
they
me.
Pumas?
They are a Pumas. Yes.
Yeah, and they're very nice.
Oh, very pretty. You can kick
Yeah.
up your heels in
You're listening
those.
I'm
Very-
gonna
very
run my next
padded.
marathon in these, I think, as long as they feel good. If they suck, I'm sending them back because they were not cheap. But
Oh, excellent. Well, there's nothing quite like splashing out in a pair of trainers.
well, that's if I'm gonna splash out on something, it's gonna be a pair of trainers. Let's be honest.
Yeah, you don't have the cupboards and cupboards full of heels or anything. They're all
No, I have
Runners.
one pair of heels that I wear only when absolutely required to, and they are neutral and go with everything.
Yep, that's good. I like it. I don't wear heels at all anymore. I just have to wear flats.
And
again.
generally, I just wear them for the moment that I have to be like taking pictures or something, and
Right.
then back to flip
ditch
flops.
them. Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, I'm excited about these. So I'm
Okay.
gonna run on my treadmill tonight after we're done.
Nice.
Yay!
Yay.
No one else is excited to go run on their treadmill after the show.
I said Jeff a thing the other day. It said, Alexa, add go to the gym to my calendar, and she reads back. I put gin on your shopping list. And he goes, good enough, close enough.
Close enough.
I like it. Okay. So I'll play Radio Roger,
Yes, sir.
and then I'm going to have to disconnect that and reconnect. And I'm just going to add all them. Just trust me. It'll be all there for the
You'll
real
fix it. You'll
deal.
fix it all.
Yeah, I'll fix it in post. I'll have to.
Okay.
Okay, let me hit the recorder. Recording.
Captain Nick, have you got your recorder on? Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I do apologize for all this, and it's still not straightened out. I don't really have any idea what's happened here, but it's not good. All right. Here we go.
I'm ready.
Ready? Okay. Slap it up there, baby.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
The view from our side of the cockpit door. WAPG. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 560.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door. With your host, Captain Jeff, broadcasting live from Studio 1A at APG headquarters in Roswell, Georgia. Today's show is recorded on the 8th of March, 2023.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the airline pilot guy. Get your ride and he's flying by with the airline pilot guy.
In today's episode, a close call between departing and landing aircraft in Portland, Oregon. A battery caught fire on a Spirit flight to Orlando. More news and your feedback. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seat backs in the upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. I'm Radio Roger, and Flight 560 is ready for pushback.
Thank you, Radio Roger. He's an award-winning TV and radio reporter, currently at the #1 all-news station in the nation, 1010 Wins on 92.3 FM in... Welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast covering the latest in aviation news and answering your great feedback. I'm Captain Jeff, a pilot at a major legacy airline based in Atlanta, Georgia. And joining us from across the pond, his studio in... Professional photographer, former RAF, RAAF fighter pilot, retired Airbus A330, A340 captain for Virgin Atlantic Airways. It's Captain Nick.
Well, hi there, Jeff. It's an honor to be first in the queue. Thanks very much from a very wintry England.
Oh, yeah. I realized I got everything out of seniority order here, didn't I? My bad. And I'm sure she'll cut us some slack for that. Speaking of her, from her lakeside studio in South, doctor, skydiver, marathon runner, strength training junkie, IPA connoisseur, and commercial multi-engine instrument-rated backstabbing jumper dumper, Dr. Steph.
Nah, I quit. Not quitting. He's like, no, just kidding.
Darn it. Just one. That was it. The last straw.
The last straw.
She told me last time. One more mistake, Jeff.
I'm out.
That's it.
I'm out.
I'm out of here.
No, of course not. So, and I don't really care. I'm just happy to be here and happy to talk to y'all. And let's talk about some airplanes and things. It's gonna be a good show.
Let's do that. And also joining us from his home studio in the Air Capital, low and slow pilot, newly certified A&P mechanic, old airplane enthusiast, and engineer in the aerospace and defense industry. It's Nick Camacho.
Hey, Captain Jeff. I'm glad to be back after a couple of hit and miss weeks.
Yeah,
forward to it.
I'm glad you're with us again in Kansas. And from her studio in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, retired financier, aviation enthusiast, spreadsheet master, and our producer director, it's Liz Piper.
Hi, Jeff. It seems so long since you and I have been doing some recording.
It does feel that way, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Have a good show, you guys.
Yeah. Okay. I'll
Liz.
be
Bye, Liz.
listening to you in the control room. And without further ado, we should probably now play the news bumper and get on with some news. Hi. That's Liz saying hello to me in the control room. And we're listening to that wonderful news bumper. Yeah, it is a catchy tune. Okay, let's start off with, okay. We'll have to pause for a moment here. I need to disconnect something from this computer and plug it into this one. Okay, and we'll go over here to StreamYard and present video file. And what is this one we're doing here? Somebody help me.
I don't know. Are we in order here on the news?
Close call. Thank you. That's
Close call. Yeah.
trying to find that video. Okay. Add to stream. All right. The first item is a Bass Aviation video, Real Aviation Communications. This.
EPS 2974 Heavy is silver poles for 10 right.
GPS 2974 heavy, cautionary turbulence, traffic holding in position as a heavy Boeing 767, runway 10 right, clear to land.
Portland, Oregon.
Clear to land, runway 10 right, GPS 2974.
Okay, the airplane is going into position. Line up and wait. 10 right.
GPS 2992 heavy, wind 1403, flight heading 090, runway 10 right, clear to take off.
Heading 090, clear for takeoff, 10 right, GPS 2992.
Traffic 2 mile final.
Okay, 2 mile final. Cleared for takeoff. Well, we're looking at the the simulated. We're not sure this is exactly what happened here, but it's an approximation. Uh-oh.
GPS 2992 heavy, abort takeoff. Traffic going around over the top of you. Abort takeoff.
The guy in the
GPS
tower's coming.
2974 heavy, go around, climb maintain 3000, fly runway heading.
Hey, don't worry, guys. I saw this on a video a couple weeks ago. This is the way you do it.
Going around GPS 2974 heavy.
I mean, that's what they all have to be thinking at this point, right?
Continue down the runway, turn right at Echo, remain in this frequency. Are you able to taxi back or do you need to stop for a while?
We can taxi back.
GPS 2992 heavy, Roger, turn right at Echo, right on Charlie, cross runway 3, taxi runway 10 right, and just remain in this frequency. Thank you.
Right on Echo, right on Charlie, and taxi runway 10 right, GPS 2992 heavy.
GPS 2974 heavy, climb maintain 5000, fly heading 180.
5000, 180. What was the reason for the delayed departure?
Nobody says anything.
GPS 2974 heavy, contact departure on 118.1.
18.
Yep. Okay. 2992 taxi back to the runway for departure, the one that was aborted the takeoff. And 2974 was vectored back for another approach. Okay. That last statement or question that he posed, he didn't address it to the tower controller, nor did he address it to his fellow UPS pilots. And I'm wondering what you all think. I kind of feel like he was basically saying, like, this guy that was on the runway delayed his departure. What was the reason for that? But I don't know.
That was the implied question. You know, what was the, did we already talk about what the weather conditions were here? This was visual
no,
conditions.
we didn't.
Or,
And I
don't know if I
think,
have that information.
do you?
No, I
Oh, you don't? I don't think we have it in our, you know what, go ahead and talk and I'll see if I can
Yeah,
find
I mean,
it
so
on,
it might depend a
Aviation
little
Herald.
bit, you know, so kind of the same setup as the previous one with FedEx and Southwest, where you have traffic on relatively short final and traffic departing ahead of them. I don't know what the weather conditions were, so without knowing that, makes it a little bit trickier to work on some of the decision-making processes. But let's just assume that it's a beautiful VFR daytime flight that's happening here for the sake of, you know, for argument's sake and for discussion's sake. So in that case, everyone can kind of see what's unfolding here. The traffic that's, I forget which UPS flight it was, but the one that's departing should be able to see the traffic on short final and looking relatively close. Traffic on short final should be able to see, oh, hey, they're cleared to take off. They should be just on the runway and rolling, and they didn't. So presumably everyone has a little bit more situational awareness in this case, but I think his question really was to, exactly as you were kind of saying, Jeff, like, why did you have a delayed departure there? I think he's actually asking his company pilots.
Kind of the feeling I had as well.
Yeah. Because, I mean, now it delays them. They were about to delay and they got to go around, blah, blah, blah.
Thanks a lot, pal. That's basically
exactly.
to read between the lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, thanks for
You know,
helping us out.
It's been a long night. You know, I was ready for like taking a nap or going home. And now I have to go around and spend another 10, 15 minutes in the air.
In the pattern. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's how I read that question. So.
That's it. I think you're exactly right there, you two. Interesting. 2 miles is fairly tight, but doable if you get on promptly and do a rolling takeoff. That should be, feasible. So, but you never know what is quite going on in the cockpit of the guy that's lining up. Perhaps they got a ding and they just had to solve a little problem. It could be lots of things that just made them come to a grinding halt. Have a think about it. Oh yeah, okay, we're good. Let's go. But I think having had that delay in rolling, then I think it was a fair decision to send this guy around. And ordering an aircraft to board on the runway is always a dangerous thing. You never know quite how fast he's going. The tower might know, if they might have a good guess. By this point he's doing 80 knots or 100 knots. But any stop on the runway requires an element of risk involved. Pardon me. And the faster they go in, the higher the risk. Much rather send the guy around and then as soon as he's in the climb, give him a turn and let the rolling aircraft take off. But I don't know. It's a tough one.
Yeah, it is. I looked in the Aviation Herald, and this incident was not listed. So I don't know what the weather was during this. Maybe somebody in our live audience might know and tell us. Yeah, Micah would tell us Portland, Maine. Correct. But not Portland, Oregon.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, and maybe it doesn't matter too much. It sounds like actually situational awareness was pretty good all around here. So a little bit different than the other scenario where it just seemed like everyone kind of knew but wasn't real worried about it. Yeah, I'm not sure, without being there and seeing it firsthand, but
I might point out that this is probably one of the most common reasons for going around. So this is actually quite this is not an unusual event at all. But you're particularly when you're trying to squeeze aircraft and get one off and get you in. Sometimes you just don't. In the UK, you may not get a clearance in time, or the aircraft taking off may just have a long takeoff roll and not clear the runway. So it's quite common to be sent around, certainly in my experience.
yeah. And I mean, if this was a busy time of day there, if it was during a push or something, there can be, I mean, you do the best with what you have, especially as the controller. You're trying to get aircraft in, have them take off, keep everyone rolling. And occasionally the timing's just not going to work out quite right for, one small reason or another, but good outcome here.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever get, in 121 operations, do you ever get clear for takeoff without delay instructions?
Yeah.
Is there like to me, in my airplane, that means essentially no stopping, right? Like in the C-47, we would stop, we'd slow down to get the tailwheel locked. But is there a standard for that? Because I assume you guys have like lineup items to do on the runway.
You
or
do,
are you
but,
actually going around the corner? And
it's going to take you 15, 20 seconds to get round the corner and get the aircraft lined up. You're not going to do that in a hurry, because as soon as you try and turn a big aircraft across the piano keys, that nose wheel starts to judder and skip, and it makes an awful racket, and it spoils your turn on. So particularly if those piano keys are any of the paint there, the runway numbers are wet. So you're not going to try and do that fast, but as soon as you get the fuselage swinging around and you get a bit of momentum going, you can, when you get within a few degrees of the runway heading, you can already advance the engines up to their initial setting, about 70%. Everything should be done. And you just say, take it on the roll. Yep. Okay. And call stabilize and off you go. So it does happen quickly. And even if there's no rush, we frequently do rolling takeoffs just because they're a prompt way to get the aircraft going, particularly if you had a little delay on the gate or something. You're off a bit late. It saves a few seconds, gets the show on the road.
Yep. Sam Dawson says at Tulip.
His outfit, his airline.
Yeah.
Tulip.
No items are done on the runway. Okay. So I think that there is some kind of a parameter. An air traffic controller would probably know the answer. I think it's like either 90 seconds or 3 minutes or something like that is a typical amount of time that you can take. And then if they want you to not dilly-dally around, as you mentioned, then they'll say something like cleared for expedited takeoff or, be ready to go. There are several different ways for them to kind of express the fact that they don't want you to, cleared for takeoff, no delay, that kind of thing.
And assuming you think you might need to delay, you should probably say unable.
Yes. Yeah. Or before you even take the runway, say,
just stay right where you are. Don't take your feet off the brakes.
Or for instance, sometimes we will, like this morning, coming out of Burlington, Vermont, we're de-iced, and when we do that, we either have to do individual engine run-ups, taxiing out to the runway, or we can alternatively do a static takeoff and run up the engines to 50% N1 for 10 seconds, and then continue with the takeoff roll at that point. And when we do that, I usually will say we're going to be on the runway for a few seconds for an engine run-up, and then just to let the tower controller kind of know, okay, this is something that's going to happen here, and this is not going to throw me off.
I mean, the whole point of a lot of this is communication. So, you don't need to be overly detailed in what you're saying, but you need to make important things known back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that answer that for you, Camacho?
Yep.
All right, awesome. Okay, little technical pause here. I do not know what's going on now.
Uh-oh.
But luckily we're being recorded on StreamYard because you guys, for some reason, are not coming in on my recording.
Well, we're all recording, I think.
Okay.
Yep, I am.
That's good. That's so weird. What is going on?
Gremlins.
I think God is telling me, Jeff, don't podcast today. Take the day off.
He might be. I mean, if that's what he's telling you, it's okay. We
got into your electronics.
I don't know what. It's just crazy. I've never had these problems before.
I mean, I really would like to do the show with you guys tonight, but if it's creating huge hassles and it's going to be a, what and the, where to figure out how to put all this together,
especially after you're just coming off of another.
We can abort and figure out some other time to do this. Right. It's all right.
I think we need to push on because this is pretty much the only day I can do this and the only chance I have to get anything accomplished because I'm going to be busy Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Wrong. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about a similar push to get things done here and later in our news.
Are we?
Well, just that concept of what they call it, a mission completion bias or something. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's get back into this.
Okay.
All right. Oh, iHaul Boxes has a quick question. Any setting that you changed for part 1, 2, or 3? Yeah, all of them.
And all the presenters.
iHaul, it's always a different setup. It's never the same thing twice.
Hey, that's fair. She's right.
I know.
Usually I tweak something and do something. But actually, for all 3 of those parts, I did it exactly the same. And I didn't change any of the equipment at all. The only thing I did was, I didn't change anything. I just took
I know what you changed.
What?
You moved the piano.
Oh, that must be it. I moved it over. That must be it. I knew I shouldn't have done that. Who's the one that complained about it was you. It was Nick Camacho's fault.
I didn't complain. I just said you look like a musical Frankenstein. Musical Frankenstein. I thought it was a good reference.
Okay, no, you're right. You didn't complain. You just kind of pointed out that it looked really odd with the keyboard sticking out of my neck on either side. And you're right. It did look weird. Okay.
You need more interesting things in your background there in your room, like a vintage, combo cathode ray TV and VCR player.
I do.
A very inaccurate globe. I would not use that for navigation purposes.
I need all that like a hole in the head stuff. I need to
we can help with that, too,
downsize. Yeah.
Downsize.
So
Too much stuff.
I have too much stuff now. Yes, ma'am. All right, let's go to this next item in the news segment. Spirit Airlines flight makes emergency landing in Florida due to fire. 10 hospitalized. Okay, this is from WFLA.com. A Spirit Airlines flight headed for Orlando was forced to make an emergency landing in Jacksonville, Florida on Wednesday after a fire broke out inside the cabin. And NBC affiliate WTLV reported that Spirit Airlines Flight 259 took off from Dallas at around 2 p.m., landed at Jacksonville International Airport just before 4 o'clock. The airline said the plane was diverted after a battery caught on fire in an overhead bin, filling the cabin with smoke. A guest's personal item was what ignited the blaze. Personal item. I was right
How
across
personal?
from a... Yeah, that's... When I saw that, I'm thinking, why did they call it a personal item?
In quotes.
Yeah.
It's in quotes.
I was right across from a luggage bin, and sadly, it's not that provocative, actually. I was right across from a luggage bin and saw smoke coming out of it, and I wasn't sure what it was. And then all of a sudden, just a ton of smoke came out, according to passenger Carrie Arakawa. Crew members and passengers sprung into action, she said. It reportedly took around 20 minutes to put the fire out. There was a retired fireman that jumped up, and a flight crew came in, and they tried to put water on it, she told WTLV. And then another guy went and got a bucket because I think the firemen reached in and grabbed it, and they got it put out. WJXT spoke to retired New York firefighter Rocco Chirchella, who said he was left with burns on his fingers after putting the fire out. He claimed a vape battery started the blaze. It was
Vaping's bad for you. Stop
Vaping is
vaping.
Okay.
Public service announcement.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You
From
want to
the
go
doctor.
into any more detail about vaping?
No.
Okay, just not good for you. Don't do it. Okay. It was starting to drop altitude in, I guess, the airplane, and somebody yelled, "Fire!" Smoke was... did you like that dramatic... fire! And
dramatic reconstruction, very impressive.
I hope my neighbors don't think that there's a fire.
They're gonna be like coming out in the hallway, like, "Oh no, where's the fire?"
Fire
Somebody's gonna pull the fire thing. Okay. And what it was a battery-powered vape tied to a battery charging inside the compartment. Very dangerous, and it ignited a piece of luggage next to it. One person was taken to the hospital, according to the Jacksonville Fire and Rescue Department. That's what they said initially. But as time went on, more people realized they could probably get something out of us, and they reported feeling ill from the smoke. It was
some odd opinion commentary there in this news
I was embellishing it a little bit, but come on.
I know.
This is what happens.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, lawyers reach out to the passengers. Oh, I can't breathe. It was not until almost 6 o'clock that more people started feeling bad. And we then turned it into what we call an MCI level 1. That's the JRFD Captain Eric Pro Swimmer. Crew members were among the 10 people taken to the hospital. They're going, we're getting on this too. With a
couple days off of work coming up. Good times ahead.
With non-life-threatening injuries. Okay. So, hey, this battery went out of control and started a fire. They got it put out, and a lot of smoke, and several people were probably stand to make a considerable amount of money from it.
So this is actually reasonably important.
Yeah.
If you're, transporting things in your luggage that are not readily accessible to you, you probably don't need to have them plugged into your battery pack, because those things get really hot when you do that sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Just putting that out there in case you were unaware.
I'm glad we have Steph here with us today, because she's like all kinds of public service announcements.
I was going to say, yeah.
We'll just call this the
That's
public
something
service
new.
announcement show. That's what I'm here for.
I was going to just mention one in that if you got firefighter training. I'm not suggesting this is the case with this fine gentleman, but if you know something about putting fire out, just bear in mind that you may not be familiar with the equipment that's available on most aircraft. Now, I don't know about Spirit, but I do know about my airline, and the firefighting equipment the cabin crew have available to them would prevent you from burning your fingers if you tried to retrieve something that was very hot or on fire from a hat rack. And if you're unaware of that, you might dive in and get your fingers burnt. Whereas if you coordinated with the cabin crew, even if you were willing to do it and they weren't, you could don the fireproof gloves and do that. And they might also have a special fireproof bag that you can put the burning item into and then add water rather than putting water into the overhead bin.
I don't have anything official, and correct me if I'm wrong if anyone else knows, but I heard that in this case, for some reason, they did not have one of those bags to put the burning item into. Did anyone else hear that? I feel like I saw that somewhere.
Item.
I could be completely wrong. They may have had it, and that's probably what they did, but I don't know why else they would be putting a bunch of water on,
Well, that is
into the hat rack. Yeah, I don't know either, but
that
certainly.
Well,
I mean, some airlines just use the ice bucket or whatever.
Yeah.
They could pitch up with the ice bucket, and there are usually gloves and smoke hoods, etc., available to fight fires. So you don't have to be a brave chap and dive in with your fingers.
I'm wondering if he just dove into action, as she said, and didn't give the flight crew a chance to. Get all
he might well have done, but being a firefighter, I would hope he would have just sat back for a second and assessed the situation.
Yeah.
And those vapors, is that the right name for a vaping
fumes?
Device?
Vapor. Vapes.
They've got a heating
Vapes.
element as part of them,
Vapes.
so you've got a double risk there because you've got both the battery that can spontaneously combust. Particularly if it's dashed, and of course, if it gets the button that turns it on gets pushed, or the heating element runs away, that can then cause the fire. They're not particularly safe bits of kit necessarily,
and they're bad for you.
Yeah, they're not. They're not good.
Well, there speaks the doctor. Whispers the doctor.
That was my go at subliminal messaging. For anyone, like falling asleep to the podcast, they'll just hear that in their subconscious.
Yes, osmosis springs in everyone to sleep.
Vaping is bad.
Vaping is bad for you. Anyway.
Okay. Well, thank you. All right. Let's do this. A preliminary investigation report from the National Transportation Safety Board. On the 4th of February, 2023, at about 6:40 Central Standard Time, FedEx Flight 1432, a Boeing 767-32LF, and Southwest Airlines Flight 708, a Boeing 737-79P, were involved in a runway incursion with overflight that resulted in loss of separation at the Austin Bergstrom International Airport, AUS, Austin, Texas. And we've talked about that a few times already on our show. And let's see, was there anything that really stood out on this, Liz, that this preliminary report? Okay. Let's see. I think at some point I read that they determined that it was really not a lot going on. It was pretty low activity during that time frame. Wasn't busy at all. And let's see, I'm trying to find, I wasn't, because this is a PDF, I wasn't able to highlight stuff. So, but we all know this story. The FedEx was on a 3-mile final, told Southwest, kind of very similar to that UPS thing we just covered. Except in this case, they were running a Category 3, very low vis situation. And I think in our feedback section, there is a little bit more information about exactly what happened and what point the 767 pilots. Oh wait, no, I take that back. It's right here. And this is some interesting stuff because we were wondering whether or not the FedEx crew could see the Southwest aircraft. And it turns out that they actually did, and that's what initiated the go-around. When FedEx 1432 was about a 0.7 mile final, the local controller queried Southwest 708 to confirm that they were on the roll, to which the captain of the Southwest flight said, rolling now. According to the captain of FedEx 1432, he noted that at an altitude of about 150 feet, the first officer called go around after visually seeing Southwest 708 at approximately 1,000 to 1,500 feet from the approach end of the runway. So that means, clearly at that point, 150 feet above the ground, and they're only 1,100 to 1,500 feet, into their roll. They said, this is not going to work. We're going to hit them if we continue to land on the runway. And that's why I guess the FedEx pilot, yelled out, we're going around, abort your takeoff. So I thought that was interesting. They actually did see at the last minute the Southwest jet on the runway.
And it sounds like at the time that that FedEx called their go around, Southwest heard that and estimated they were somewhere between 80 knots and V1. So.
Mm-hmm. And they decided not to
abort.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty tight, isn't it? 150 feet from landing, and you see an aircraft that could be as close as 1,000 feet in front of you on the runway.
Tight.
That's not nice.
Yeah.
Not good. And I think he was just going into, the FedEx guys were just going into self-preservation mode by probably saying something that a controller should say, but they felt it necessary to say themselves because they were thinking, we're going to die if that guy takes off and flies right into us.
Yep. Yeah, so. I don't know that I can. Should they have said that? We can argue that all day long, but
probably
I
not.
I blame them for saying it.
Yeah. Honestly,
well, particularly since you've got very little time to assess the collision potential. You haven't really got time to watch the aircraft to see how fast he's accelerating. You just got to see a picture and make a decision.
Yep.
Liz was saying, I think we're about a half an hour point. Not really sure.
Who knows? We'll just go until it feels right.
And I said, well, what do you mean you think? Don't you have an accurate assessment of exactly how it would be? Yeah, this has been a mess. This is even more of a mess than the last one. It's a hotter mess.
Fire!
Oh man. Okay. All right. Let me go over. Another preliminary report. This from the Aviation Herald. It involves, and actually this has been out for a while, and we somehow missed. I remember reading this, and I forgot to clip it and put it. Thank you, Liz. Put it in the news segment because this is significant. That's the Nepal ATR 72 that crashed near the Pokhara International Airport, Victor November Papa Romeo. So, and it was just like, well, what happened? It just like fell out of the sky. Don't understand. Okay, well, here's some information that will kind of point to what probably happened. So they were operating between Kathmandu and Pokhara International. The same flight crew operated two sectors between the two airports. Earlier in the morning, the accident occurred during a visual approach for runway 12 or 12 at Victor November Papa Romeo. This was the third flight by the crew members on that day. The flight was operated by two captains. Well, there you go. One captain was in the process of obtaining aerodrome familiarization for operating into Pokhara because it's the new airport. I've just recently moved from the old one to the new Pokhara International. And the other captain was the instructor pilot. The captain, being familiarized, was occupying the left-hand seat and was the pilot flying. The instructor pilot, occupying the right-hand seat, was pilot monitoring. The takeoff cruise and descent to Pokhara was normal during the first contact with tower. The air traffic controller assigned the runway 30 to land, but during the latter phases of flight, crew the crew requested and received clearance from ATC to land on runway 12. The aircraft descended from 6,500 feet at 5 miles away, joined the downwind track for runway 12 to the north of the runway. The aircraft was visually identified by air traffic control during the approach. Pilots extended the flaps to the 15 degrees position, selected the landing gear lever to the down position. The takeoff setting was selected on the power management panel. Then the pilot flying disengaged the autopilot system at an altitude of 721 feet above ground level. The pilot flying then called for flaps 30, and then the pilot monitoring replied, the instructor, flaps 30 and descending. The flight data recorder did not record any flap surface movement at the time. Instead, the propeller rotation speed of both engines decreased simultaneously to less than 25%, and the torque started decreasing to 0%, which is consistent with both propellers going into the feathered condition. On the cockpit voice recorder, area microphone, a single master caution chime was recorded. Then the flight crew carried out the before landing checklist before starting the left turn onto the base leg. During that time, the power lever angle increased from 41 to 44%. At this point, the propeller rotation speed of both propellers was recorded as non-computed data in the FDR, and the torque of both engines were still at 0%. When propellers are in feather, they are not producing thrust. When both propellers were feathered, the investigation team observed that both engines of the aircraft were running flight idle condition during the event to prevent overtorque. As per the FDR data, all the recorded parameters related to engines did not show any anomaly. At 10:56:50, when the radio altitude call out for 500 feet was enunciated, another click sound was heard. The aircraft reached a maximum bank angle of 30 degrees at this altitude. The recorded propeller rotation and torque remained invalid. The yaw damper disconnected 4 seconds later. The pilot flying consulted the pilot monitoring on whether to continue the left turn, and the pilot monitoring replied to continue the turn. Subsequently, the pilot flying asked the pilot monitoring on whether to continue to descend, and the pilot monitoring responded it was not necessary and instructed to apply a little power. That doesn't make sense to me. Okay, another click was heard, followed by the flaps surface movement to 30 degrees. When ATC gave the clearance for landing, the pilot flying mentioned twice that there was no power coming from the engines. The power levers were advanced first to 62 degrees, then to a maximum power position. And then it was followed by a click sound. 1 second after the click sound, the aircraft was at the initiation of its last turn at 368 feet above ground. The high-pressure turbine speed of both engines increased from 73 to 77%. It's noted that the pilot flying, the guy that was getting checked out, he handed over control of the aircraft to the pilot monitoring, the instructor. And the pilot monitoring, who was previously the pilot flying, repeated again that there was no power coming from the engines. When the aircraft was at 311 feet AGL, the stick shaker was activated, warning the crew that the aircraft angle of attack increased up to the stick shaker threshold. A second sequence of stick shaker warning was activated when the aircraft banked towards the left abruptly. I think that was kind of what we saw in that video that some witness had taken. Thereafter, the radio altitude alert for 200 feet was enunciated. The cricket sound and stick shaker ceased, and finally the sound of impact was heard on the CVR. So seems to me, again, it's not the report yet, but it seems to me that the pilot, the instructor pilot monitoring, instead of putting the flaps to 30, probably didn't look down, probably just felt for what he thought was the flap lever, and instead moved the propeller, what would you call that stuff? The
prop lever into feather. You can pull it. So I don't know on the ATR, but they could have moved the props into feather. if those controls are nearby each other. So I mean, I can only really draw on the aircraft that I fly. Specifically thinking about the Caravan, we've got power, prop, then we've got fuel cutoff, and then flaps in that order on the pedestal. So what a couple of us do for putting in flap settings, because it's on the other side of the fuel cutoff lever, where your hands move from power level and prop condition, you have to skip over that to get to the flaps. So you visually look, if you can at all, hand on the flaps, and a couple of us say flaps are flat because the actual control surface is a little flat tab that you move, and the other ones are very different shape. They're kind of round or something obviously different. So just a couple little different checks to make sure that you're moving the correct levers. In our case, we're more worried about potentially moving the fuel cutoff, but you'd have to actually move over the detent and back. It would be difficult to do, but theoretically something that if you just, were caught off guard or something weird was going on, potentially could happen.
Okay, I
I watched a video assessment of this, and indeed those two levers, the flap lever and the prop levers, are next door to each other. So the prop levers are the ones that are fully closed there, Mark 1 and 2.
Yep.
And then the one with obviously flap shaped, but you have to have your hand wrapped around it to really
know. They're much more similarly shaped than what we have going on in the Caravan.
Yeah.
But a similar proximity. I can see exactly how that happened.
He's not looking down. He's just looking outside, clearing and, seeing
and if they're moving to flaps 30, that's kind of the last detent there for the flaps. So you're going to pull that lever all the way back. If you pull the prop condition lever all the way back, presumably pulling it into feather there.
Yeah.
And then you're not going to produce any torque.
And because
and then it doesn't matter what you do with the power lever. You're not going to produce more torque.
Yeah, because it's not going to do anything, right?
No, it's in feather. Props in feather.
Yeah.
It's just going to get louder.
These guys are being checked out on a new approach, and you've got a new captain trying to make judgments, and the instructor's trying to talk his way around the final turn and everyone's looking out the window to see how the approach is going. So, unless the instructor's going to look in, as he really should do, and perhaps he wasn't happy to do so at that moment and just fumble the lever, but having set the props back to feather instead of setting flap 30, he subsequently selected flap 30. So I'm a little surprised it didn't occur to him
notice that
hang on a minute, I've already done this. What else did I do?
Yeah, I wonder if he just did like a quick,
too, but,
like a quick check, and then, oh shoot, I thought I put the flaps to 30. I didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, let me do that again. But didn't notice that the props lever was.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that there was not more identification of the loss of thrust.
Right. Why did we lose thrust here? We're pushing the power lever up. Yeah.
I would have thought that your body would have felt, because like when you go to feather, it's zero thrust.
Yeah. It's a very different feel for how the aircraft flies, and it sounds different.
Yeah.
A lot.
Sounds, in the airplanes that I've flown, sounds way different.
Yeah.
That surprised me a little bit.
Yeah. Now, were they maybe coming in at kind of a high angle and low power, kind of like you don't want to have a lot of power on? And maybe that kind of contributed to the lack of sense of the fact that you don't have your power where you should have.
I was kind of trying to think through it. And if you're at like a steep angle where you have the power pulled back, in that scenario, the propellers are actually acting more like an air brake. And so if you feather them, I would actually expect you to maybe get a little more performance.
Speed. Yeah, performance. Yeah. So they must not have been on a high angle approach, because that doesn't make sense to me. Because, yeah.
Yeah, I have
because if you're in a very steep
whatsoever
approach, you might, prop all the way full as opposed to feather to act as that brake. You can actually do beta approaches in some aircraft that way.
Yep. The other point I was going to make was if that instructor's used to sitting in the captain's seat, those two levers are in the opposite order than they are when he's in the left-hand seat. Now, when I was, done quite a few years as a captain, I did a few trips in the right-hand seat, the FO seat, and I found it quite disorientating, the fact that everything was on the center console was now backwards. And I'm just wondering if he just didn't appreciate which lever he was going to because he was used to sitting in the captain's seat, and the flat lever was the furthest away from him.
No,
as
thanks
opposed
for
to
mentioning
sitting in
that.
the
'Cause
first
I
officer seat where it's the closest to him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I agree with Nick C. Like, I'm a little surprised that they didn't do more. They had time to kind of troubleshoot why there was no thrust coming from being produced by the engines, why there was no torque.
Yeah. Guess we'll never know.
Nope. Sorry, I think there's control room discussions happening.
Yeah, we're not hearing all the control room banter.
So if everyone else is wondering, that's just stand by.
Yeah, they can't hear what we're saying, Liz. So it was kind of rude, though. I mean, I think that they're nice people.
Yeah, what else is new?
That's
Sorry.
it. I really quit this time.
We were.
I mean, it's not like we're getting ready to talk about a news item about a Canadian airline flying a Canadian.
Well, we
airplane
were, but
that
actually,
screwed
that was
something
what
up.
we were talking about. We're going to skip this.
Oh,
one.
Liz is sweeping it under the rug.
Liz
'Cause
doesn't
we-
want to. No Canadian.
No,
dirt.
it was my idea. Well, as actually, we came to a. Yeah, we both thought of it. So let's skip this one. But there's another Canadian item somewhere in there. So
There is. It's the last one.
Okay. Well, let's do F next. And this is from the Aero News Network. The NTSB issues a preliminary report on the Honolulu runway incursion. We talked about this either last or maybe a couple of shows ago. Yeah, a couple of shows ago, I guess. So you'll recall that a Boeing 777-200 United operating under Part 121, blah, 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 United Flight 384 and a Cessna 208B Grand Caravan operating under Part 135. They were flying on the parallel runway. Really, they had nothing to do with this, except that we're there at the time. The 384 was coming in from Denver to Honolulu. And let's see, visual meteorological conditions prevailed at the time of the incident. According to the United 777 flight crew, the taxi, takeoff, departure, and cruise phases of the flight were uneventful. At the time of the incident, the second in command, the first officer, was the pilot flying the 777. The pilot in command, captain, was the pilot monitoring. Approximately 70 nautical miles out, they planned the top of descent point. The flight crew commenced preparations for arrival and approach. After the two pilots obtained and reviewed the Honolulu Automated Terminal Information Service, the ATIS broadcast, company notes, notices to airmen. Now this is from the NTSB, not naughty. Notices to air missions and the Germain arrival. I've never flown that one, the Germain one. Landing and taxi diagrams, they configured the aircraft for the expected arrival and approach. The United aircrew noted ongoing construction at Honolulu had rendered runway 8 left unavailable for landing traffic. United Airlines company operational notes indicate that the Boeing 777 aircraft are not permitted to perform land and hold short operations, LASO, LAHSO, on runway 4 right, which is the runway they were assigned. They set forth, commencing descent. They had briefed the flight's planned approach as the RNAV GPS to runway 8 right. Okay, that's the one that's way out, pretty much out in the water, although the runway itself is above the water. Taking into consideration the unlikely possibility that Honolulu would issue a last-minute runway reassignment, the pilots retrieved the landing data for runways 8 right and 4 right. United Flight's pilot in command stated that after the aircraft had leveled at flight level 230, the Honolulu control facility directed the 777 to proceed directly to Bambo at 10,000 feet. They switched frequencies to Honolulu approach and checked in. They told them that they had received the latest ATIS broadcast and understood. They normally don't say that like that. Honolulu approach control assigned the United flight a heading of 220 degrees, advised the flight crew to expect a visual approach to 4 right. Flight crew acknowledged the transmission, and the pilot in command, the captain again, advised Honolulu approach that United's operations specs forbid lasso operations on Honolulu's runway 4 right. The second in command initiated the descent, reviewed and loaded the approach to runway 4 right into the 777 flight management computer. She indicated she changed the aircraft's landing flap setting from 25 to 30 and its auto brake setting from 2 to 3. It's a shorter runway than the 8 right. She then briefed the approach, reviewed the exit plan from 4 right, confirming that the aircraft would either roll the runway's full length or, speed permitting, make a left turn onto taxiway Kilo. Let's see. And then there was their talk about the Cessna 208 on the parallel, and the fact that Tower was telling them that the 777 was on the right, and caution wake turbulence. So the United flight landed on runway 4 right, activated the thrust reversers, began manual braking at approximately 110 knots. As the 777 approached 80, the flight's pilot command, the captain, made the 80-knot call out, and the second in command stowed the thrust reversers and slowed the aircraft to less than 35 knots. At this time, the second in command, the first officer, offered to transfer control of the aircraft to the pilot in command, as briefed. Pilot in command took control of the 777 using the aircraft's tiller to initiate a left turn onto taxiway Kilo. Information obtained by the NTSB's ATC group indicated that about 16:09 Honolulu Standard Time, the tower inquired about whether they had Kilo. Got Kilo? United 384 responded, turn left on Kilo. Honolulu Tower instructed the United flight, to hold short of runway 4 left. They acknowledged the hold short instruction. The United's pilot in command, the captain, later stated that he was surprised by the hold short instruction, insomuch as he had informed Honolulu approach control that UAL's operation specifications forbid lasso operations on Honolulu runway 4 right. Pilot in command reported he had momentarily lost situational awareness as the 777 exited runway 4 right, as he believed Honolulu's runway 4 right and runway 4 left were separated by a greater distance than they actually are. The pilot in command stated that he had been concerned about getting clear of the landing runway and focused primarily on taxiing the 777 beyond the hold short line between runway 4 right and taxiway Kilo.
Question there, Jeff.
Yeah.
Land and hold short, that's not the same to me as hold short of a runway.
You are correct, sir.
We
and that's
all have the
exactly,
same question.
We're all thinking, wait a minute, that's not lasso procedure. That's
land and hold short on the runway.
Yes.
Correct. As opposed to your clear cross or your clear taxi on Kilo,
and then hold
short of runway 04 left.
Runway, actually, not 4 left. I looked it up on my handy dandy Jeppesen, what do you call this thing? Flight Deck Pro application. And I didn't get an image of this, but essentially the 4 right never intersects 4 left because they're parallel runways. It's 8 left that the lasso procedures have you holding short of, which is like 6,200 and some odd feet. And they elected to turn off at Kilo. And that, as you mentioned, Captain Nick and Steph, you're thinking, and probably Nick Camacho as well. Well, that's not land and hold short operations that you're talking about here. That's holding short of another runway. That's not the same thing.
No, that's perfectly allowed based on what they described United's operating procedures to be. The other thing, when we first talked about this incident that caught my attention, is that on the taxiway diagram, that particular confluence of taxiways and runways, there's a little circle around it and a little line over that says HS2. So it's a hotspot area. So it's a known, kind of problematic area at risk for incursions and other such events.
Yes.
Which I'm surprised was not part of their brief if they were thinking they were going to perhaps exit at Kilo. And given the length of the 777.
Furthermore,
and finally, if you are worried about your arse hanging over the runway you've just vacated, or your nose going over a runway which has an aircraft landing on it, which one are you going to choose?
Well, neither. I'd roll to the end of the runway and do something different.
Well, yeah, but if you did take Kilo, the most important part is not going
onto,
If you've taken that high speed,
yes.
I say it's better to leave your backside hanging over the runway that you've just turned off than it is to stick your nose on the runway that somebody's landing on.
Agree.
Because they knew that guy was down there because they were told to stay visual with them, weren't they?
Visual separation. Mm-hmm.
They should have been aware that there was the caravan on the parallel runway. And finally, I think to me, one of the most important things is that they were never given the instruction for land and hold short operation because he clearly stated that they could not do that. And so obviously the tower knew that they weren't going to hold short of
the land and hold, but as
left.
Captain Nick, rightly said, that's land and hold short, 8 left.
Yeah,
that's the only way.
But they didn't even have to do that. They were not. That was not their clearance. It was clear to land on 4 right. They could have used every inch of that runway,
exactly,
including crossing over 8 left, because I think 8 left, as I said, construction was going on. 8 left wasn't even open. So, but that regardless of that, they were not given clearance to land and hold short of runway 8 left. They were given clearance to land 4 right. So there was no reason for him to just all of a sudden maybe. At the transfer control point, he goes, okay.
Yeah, that was something I was going to bring up. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not something we ever did on my airline. I was wondering if it happened on yours, because it's an area where the guy that's now going to taxi you clear of the runway isn't choosing his own turnoff. The FO who's doing the landing is the one that's braking the aircraft for a turnoff. So when you're handed control, or you take over control in that changeover, you're not necessarily well prepared for the turnoff that you suddenly arrived at because you're not choosing it.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of aircraft don't have tillers on both sides.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
Oh. But that doesn't matter in this case.
Okay.
In other words, he's saying like, just because now I don't know, it doesn't say that she had used like nose wheel steering with the rudder and started like turning that direction. It doesn't state that, so I'm assuming that did not happen. They were still going straight down the runway, and I think that the captain just got caught off guard. Like, oh, we're slowing down a lot faster than I thought we were. We can just go ahead and take Kilo instead of going all the way down to the end of 4 right, and our taxi route back to our gate is going to be a lot longer. So I'm just going to take the shortcut here, and just didn't really think it through. The fact that the distance between those 2 runways is very short, and there's really not a lot of room for a 210-foot long airplane to fit on Kilo and hold short of 4 left without the tail sticking out on the runway behind you.
I mean, in theory, they could have taxied down runway 8, couldn't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is just beyond Kilo.
They could have continued crossing 8 left.
I don't know exactly what type
and
of
used the
construction was
entire length of
on 8 left.
Yeah,
yeah.
But
No, they said it was,
he probably didn't want to do that since it was going to add, a lot of taxi time back. I'm guessing.
Yeah, especially if Kilo was an easy exit to make for them in that situation.
The narrative, it's a much faster way to get to the terminal area to use Kilo, but the narrative says that the reason they had planned initially to land on runway 8 left, which is the closest one to all the terminals and everything else, the inboard runway. Except because due to construction, it was not open. So they landed on 4 right, and they could have gone all the way at the end of 4 right, turned left on Charlie or Alpha, I guess, and then back around. Again, I don't have the exact thing there, but you can see. No? Well, here, let me do this then.
It would have added more time.
Yeah. Here.
Yep.
There's no reason for them to take Kilo. They could have gone all the way down. All that green was theirs. They were not told to hold short of anything.
Yeah, it's not a huge amount of runway they would have had to add to their landing roll.
Although,
Like it would have taken them half an hour to taxi back.
just throw this in here too, because there was that inquiry from the tower whether they were going to be able to make Kilo, or it said got Kilo. So they're like, oh yeah, we got Kilo.
Yeah, because
You know,
they were
pretty
less than
nonchalant.
35 knots, so they were
Yeah.
pretty slow. They were just crawling at that
So like,
point.
oh yeah,
I
they
go,
want us to take Kilo. Sure, yeah,
Yeah.
no problem.
That makes sense for them to ask that. But, okay.
Interesting.
Well, yeah, very interesting.
And like I
Okay.
said, you know, we kind of touched on this before, but for the caravan, it was very much a non-event, even though technically this is, you know, incursion. But
Yeah, because they mentioned that they always use echo. You know,
Yeah.
they always pull off way, and they don't use a lot of runway.
no,
Okay. All right, let's do a Canadian thing here. What do you think?
it's a sad Canadian
If we have to.
story.
Yeah, it is. This is from theglobeandmail.com, or also says Morgan Lowry, Montreal, the Canadian Press. Is that the same thing, Liz? The Globe and Mail? Oh. Okay. Okay, so Toronto's website picked up the Montreal Canadian Press story. A fatal crash near Old Montreal in 2021 of a small plane towing a marriage proposal banner was caused by several factors, including weather and engine trouble, the TSB of Canada concluded in a report released on Wednesday. The lone passenger died and the pilot was badly hurt when a Cessna 172M pulling a banner reading, "Will you marry me?" crashed near. I wonder if they had a question mark on the banner or not. They don't in this story here, and that bothers me. Crashed near the Concord Bridge of Montreal's. People that know me know that really does bother me. Montreal's
Ile Saint-Hélène.
Inshallah.
Ile Saint-Hélène.
Exactly. On October 2nd, 2021, the safety board cited a combination of factors, including weather, engine trouble, and pilot decision-making, to explain how a flight that was only supposed to last 8 minutes went so wrong. Investigators said the plane was flying over the St. Lawrence River when the engine first began to sputter. The pilot prepared for an emergency landing on the Concord Bridge, only to find it full of concrete construction barriers. He then tried to land on nearby Pierre Dupuy Avenue with tragic results. Now I see why Liz picked this story for me. The aircraft's left wing grazed some treetops. The aircraft began to cartwheel, and then it struck the ground, the report said. A post-impact fire broke out just under a minute after impact. The badly injured pilot managed to escape the wreckage but was unable to rescue the passenger, who remained trapped inside. While the report found no signs of mechanical engine failure in the plane, it concluded that rainy and overcast weather conditions were favorable to ice building up in the plane's carburetor. Given the amount of ice that was quite likely in the carburetor when the carburetor heat was turned on, the melted ice entered the engine, causing an additional loss of power. Weather conditions forced the pilot to fly at an altitude of 500 feet above sea level, rather than the planned 1,200 feet, giving him little time to react when something went wrong. The flight was bound by visual flight rules, which state that the pilot should be able to keep visual reference to the surface and have visibility of at least 3 miles. The report said that the pilot decided to take off despite knowing about the poor conditions, likely because of time constraints and what the TSB called planned continuation bias. There you go, Steph. Which makes a person reluctant to alter their plans despite the changing conditions. Weather forecasts indicated unfavorable conditions, making it difficult to meet the minimum requirements for a VFR flight. However, the pilot decided to take off and proceed with the flight at an altitude of 500 feet above sea level, likely under the influence of an unconscious cognitive bias and the time constraints to complete the flight. When the pilot held an appropriate license that was obtained in 2006, the report concluded, while the pilot held an appropriate license that was obtained in 2006, the report concluded that neither he nor the passenger should have been in the air that day. Regulations stipulate that passengers accompanying pilots who are carrying out aerial work, such as towing banners, are only allowed if their presence is essential or with special permission. which the TSB said was not granted in this case. Furthermore, the pilot's medical certificate had expired 1 day before the crash, meaning that he should not have been allowed to fly. Okay, that I don't know how significant that is.
That's insult to injury. Well, to very serious injury mostly.
What do you think, Steph and Nixie? You guys
I'll let
are
Nixie
GA
go first on this one.
people and
The A&P.
carburetor
You can talk to us
ice. What
about
is that?
carburetor icing in great
Yeah,
detail.
I think. Well, so for people who understand how a carburetor works, it's basically a venturi. You're accelerating the air, and one thing that I think people get very tripped up by when they first start flying carbureted airplanes is that carburetor ice is the susceptibility to carburetor ice is based on the environmental conditions you're in, but it's not like super cold.
It's not always the temperature. It doesn't have to be like freezing and icing, and you can still get carburetor ice.
Yeah,
because of how the air temperature drops as the air goes through
that's
that
exactly
narrowed
it, right.
space, and you get that venturi.
Yeah, as the airspeed speeds up, the temperature decreases. So what you're looking for is actually a freezing temperature at the high velocity you see in the carburetor. And because warmer air can hold more water, you're generally more susceptible to carburetor ice on like 50 to 60 degree days with a fair amount of humidity versus really cold days. Like if you go out when it's 10 degrees, there's just not a lot of moisture in the air that can freeze and turn into ice when that airflow is accelerated in the carburetor. But when you're, say it's 60 degrees outside and there's a lot of humidity, as that air enters the carburetor and accelerates, the air mass can no longer hold as much air. It goes back to
it gets super cooled.
Yeah,
right,
saturation
basically.
And dew point and all that sort of stuff. That all ties together, right? And as the temperature decreases, the air mass can no longer hold the same amount of water. So it condenses out and becomes little water droplets, basically. And then those water droplets freeze because it's also losing temperature as it accelerates. And that causes carburetor ice. So,
but why is the ice the problem? Well, then it's blocking the airflow that you're trying to utilize. So, in your combustion engine, where you need to mix air and fuel.
Right. And so, here's an example. The picture that we just had up basically shows how you combat that, which is you basically have multiple inputs into the engine or into the induction system, the intake of the airplane. On most airplanes, you'll have a filtered air system that's almost like a ram air type of inlet. It's on the front of the airplane, and that's your standard way to get air into the induction system. You pull air through a filter and then put it into, route it into the carburetor. But then most airplanes also have a carb heat, right? Carb heat setting, which is basically routing heated air into the carburetor in instances of carb icing or in high susceptibility to carb icing events. And that's basically like running the air over a heat exchanger on the exhaust or something, and then heating the air up that way and then sending that air into the carburetor.
As carb heat, I'm trying to recall, many, like decades ago that I actually flew a general aviation airplane. Isn't that like part of your landing checklist to make sure the carb heat's on almost every time? I mean, is there any time you don't turn it on for landing? Probably not.
It depends on the aircraft. Probably you could argue it depends on certain weather conditions as well.
It does depend on the airplane, yeah. And there's also airplanes that are more susceptible to carb icing, like the little Continentals that you find in like Cubs and Luscombe's. For some reason, they're just more susceptible to carburetor icing, is what I've been told.
But in this case, he wasn't, setting up for a landing. He was out there towing a banner. And
correct.
Yeah.
So
but the weather was poor, and like Nixie was saying, it was kind of just the right combination of, and they may have, if they were trying to fly relatively slower to make sure that the banner was in the right place at the right time for someone to see it. I can think of a whole lot of reasons why maybe they had the power pulled back enough that it would have made them more susceptible to carb icing too, kind of like landing conditions, even if it wasn't that far back.
Is that legal, by the way? So the conditions, 500, they were at 500 feet. Were they actually maintaining VFR
I don't know what
cloud
the
clearance?
rules- Well, I don't remember what the cloud layer was, but
It's pretty low.
yeah, 'cause they
Yeah,
were
I
trying
don't
to be
think
at
it said-
1,200 feet anyway, but they couldn't get to 1,200 feet, so
Yeah.
it was probably very marginal VFR. Like it may have
Okay.
been 1,000, so they
Yeah, it says that he flew at 500 feet.
Yeah.
Weather conditions forced the pilot to fly at an altitude of 500 feet.
So we
I don't know if
really
that means
know.
that clouds were at 600 feet, or maybe the
Yeah.
clouds were at
were at
1,500.
1,500
He was
feet,
trying
and
to
he couldn't
maintain
maintain
his
the
1,000 foot.
Yeah, he may,
clearance.
but regardless, he was in a populated area over a city, so none of that's really.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder, do they
there's-
have any kind of special exemption when you're banner towing thing as far as the
I have no
clearance
idea.
requirements over like city areas and stuff?
I don't know. I've never done any banner towing,
Yeah.
and I don't know if this was really done with all the appropriate. So in the United States, that would be generally part of a commercial operation. So you're subject to certain.
It just seems like pretty kind of sketchy as far as safety is concerned to be that
I'm not sure
low.
all what was happening here, and unfortunately had
Yeah.
really tragic results.
Yeah. And we don't know what the answer was.
Will you marry me? Well, whether it was a question in the first place or not, there was no
It may
question
not.
mark.
It was just a statement.
It's just a statement. Will you marry me?
Declaration.
Declaration.
Well, it's good that we can laugh about
I'm
this.
sorry. I'm sorry that we're laughing about this. This was horribly sad.
It was
and,
not funny at all.
not funny, but
Yeah.
man, a lot of this
I think
is
when we
go-
discussed this, we did ask why he tried to land instead of ditching, because he
Yeah, if you pull that
lined
map
in
back
one
up of
pla-
the city, he's trying to land
Yeah,
on
I
a bridge
mean,
at first. There's water right there.
Exactly. It might. I question the decision to try and find some concrete to put it on when he's got all that open water.
Water terrifies me.
Yeah, water's not always a great idea. So none of those options are good options. You're basically in that moment, you get a few seconds to make the least bad decision that you can if you find yourself in that situation.
Liz is saying that this is a very fast flowing river, and October, it's very cold, maybe not
Yeah.
full of ice, but it's extremely cold.
Yeah. I can think of a lot of not good reasons to want to land in the water.
I'm just wondering which is worse, cold water or very hot fire.
Well, if the road was relatively clear of traffic and you think you can make a normal descent and landing without a lot of obstacles, I would take the road over fast moving cold water 100% of the time.
Not even
Personally.
99? You're going the full 100%.
Well, I mean, in that specific situation,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of there's additional variables, right? Landing in the water with a fixed gear airplane.
yeah, you can
If
end
it
up
flips over,
cartwheeling over and
does he have the banner attached? If he's going slow.
No, I
and
think
has
he jettisoned the banner.
Did
But,
it hit
that's
the
like
bright-
one advantage that airlines have is that it's kind of boat shaped when you hit the water. So it's
tricycle landing gear or fixed gear underneath the aircraft is not great for water landing. You have to time that.
Granted, but
just
there's
right.
no guarantee that. Anyway, you make your decision, don't you? You pick a spot and try your best. But,
if you found yourself in that terrible situation, you have very little time to make
yeah,
a decision.
that was made in the report. It was all going to happen very quickly.
Yeah. Well, a sad situation, and we were sorry to hear about the passenger fatality and the serious injury of the pilot, but thought that was important to talk about on our show. All right.
And thank you for the discussion of
Oh,
carburetor
I think I
icings. It's a
found
good review.
the forecast conditions.
Oh,
3 statute miles, ceilings varying 600 to 1,200 feet.
It's pretty low.
Oh,
that
that's
doesn't
low
sound
ceiling.
100% VFR. To
No.
me.
What are you talking about? You talking about the Portland one?
No, this
Oh.
one.
Oh, the Montreal one. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm still in the past. I'm holding on to the past. I'm sorry.
I
All
do
right.
have a curious tidbit about carburetor icing. It doesn't really affect this story, but the other thing about carburetor ice is you're introducing hot air to the engine, so you actually have a little bit of performance degradation because you're combusting with hot air instead of cold air. And
Okay.
the Luscombe, which is the airplane that I fly, when they went to certify that airplane, they had a fuselage tank that sat behind the cabin. And so it sat about like head width or shoulder width to the pilots. And the airplane originally had a 50 horsepower engine in it. And so it was fine. And then when they put a 65 horsepower engine in it,
Real high
which is-
performance there.
incredible performance.
30% more.
That's true.
When they put the 65 horsepower engine in it, what they found is they could actually, with one pilot, a quarter tank of gas, I think, or something like that, lightly loaded, right? They could take off and pitch the airplane in such a manner that they could actually get the carburetor higher than the fuel pickup and starve the engine of fuel.
Ooh.
And so the FAA said, this is not going to work. You need to do something about it. And Luscombe, being the fiscally tight guy or company that they were like, oh, we could do all this work, redesign everything, or we could make people take off with carburetor heat and essentially replicate the 50 horsepower.
Take off with carb heat.
So yeah, so that
you
airplane
reduce
is
the power.
placarded to take off with carburetor heat, so you don't make too much power on takeoff.
We don't want you to starve the carburetor.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So you can't pitch up too much. We don't want that much performance. That's no good.
Pitch up good, not too much.
But then once you're going, we want that 65 horse there for you.
Right.
That's a
That
good
is
one.
interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't know
Yes,
that.
thank you.
I actually did know that there were a few aircraft that required carb heat on takeoff, and I never knew the reason why. So that's a
That's the Luscombe. I don't know any of the rest of them, but that's the Luscombe.
well, maybe it was just that one. Maybe I don't know why I had heard that at some point, but
Good story. Guess what? It's not playing.
yes, it is.
Is this? I don't hear it.
I hear it.
Well, that's weird.
It sounds great.
Oh, I can hear it now. Now I put the finger up. Okay, it's one of those shows, isn't it? I need to turn the carburetor heat on. Getting to know us, the time of the show where we get all caught up. And yeah, I know, we just recorded like a 3-part show, and it was just like a couple of days ago. But hey, things happen, right? Liz,
I mean, stuff happens.
let's start with who? Nixie. Yeah, you weren't part of that 3-part series. Lucky you.
That's true.
So you have the most to catch up on.
That's true.
Yeah.
While you do
I thought
that,
I was
I'm
gonna
going to
hit
read
one of them. I thought with 3 opportunities, I was.
Oh,
Gonna
I
be able
know,
to
but you know,
hit one
you
of
have
them.
a life and things going on. So what's been happening?
So I finished my marathon work session out in California. I came home and immediately jumped into. So the day I got home was the day that my airplane went out of annual. So we've been finishing up the Luscombe annual. I started the annual on my airplane, and then other than that, just trying to catch up on stuff around the house. I think I'm just about caught up from being gone for a couple of weeks. So those are the main things. And then the big thing is, I think I touched on this last time I was on, but I set up X-Plane on my computer to start working on my instrument rating. And then kind of coincidental to me setting that up was my son had a couple of trips. He went to our local science museum a few months ago, and then we went to the Kansas Aviation Museum here in town, and they had little simulator setups, and he was super excited about that. So when I got my yoke and rudder pedals all set up on my computer, he kind of came up to me and was like, "Hey, what's that stuff you got going on there on your computer? Looks like a airplane steering wheel." And I was like, "Yeah, that's the setup. I'm trying to set up a simulator." So got it all set up, and I started flying it with him, and he's been flying it every single night that I've been home.
Oh, nice.
That was his biggest disappointment in me being gone for 2 weeks. He could care less that I wasn't around, but the fact that I wasn't here to run the flight simulator with him was just
Really
crushing.
irked him.
So, yep. And he is rapidly improving. You know, we started with basically just letting him fly around and do everything, and then last night he was flying the MD-82. I almost had to call you to figure out how to start it, Jeff.
I don't know. You'd have to call Brent. Can you fly that by yourself? Jeff? No, I don't know how to start the engine.
And he took off. He flew around California for, I don't know, probably 20 minutes. And then came back and flew into San Luis Obispo and attempted a landing. Actually made a okay landing, but I didn't have the thrust reverser set up. And so we definitely did not get stopped on the runway. But he's making progress.
That's good. Hey, Nick, we have a question for you. We covered, I guess the way to ask the question is,
I don't like how this is starting.
were you in Pennsylvania a while back? Just wondering.
That
Lehigh
that
Valley?
was not me.
No?
That does look a little bit like me.
Okay. Do you carry like 3-inch round explosive devices in your luggage? Okay, he's not going to answer that. Okay.
Not that I'm aware
You
of.
probably didn't read the. Was that one of the news articles that you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I missed that one too. But...
And then when they paged him, he left very, very
He
quickly.
ran away.
Abruptly, like
He
time to
ran
go.
away.
Goodbye.
Yeah, gotta go. Left something in the car. But we mentioned on one of those parts that this guy kind of reminded us a little bit of you. Not really, but there's a
A vague
beard.
resemblance.
I was going to say like the unkempt facial hair, not quite a beard,
Yes.
but not shaven. Yeah.
I'm just wondering. It's just something we thought of. Okay.
Yeah, so I think that's it for me.
I noticed, Liz, he's not incriminating himself at all. He's not saying anything. Okay, that's very smart. All right, Miss Steph, what have you been up to in the last few days?
I did a lot of flying over the weekend.
Oh, that's good.
Yay! We had gorgeous weather this past weekend. In comparison to the previous weekend when I was supposed to fly, and the weather was not gorgeous. Very rainy and low ceilings. So yeah, Saturday was great. We had a lot of people wanting to get their skydive on, get back in the air after the winter. So I think we flew 24 loads, 22 of them just straight through. But fortunately, we had 2 pilots available that day, so I didn't have to do all of them in a row, because that's a lot of time just sitting in the airplane. And so I probably did half of those. And then Sunday, it was not quite as busy of a day on Sunday. Generally they're not. People have other things to do and church and whatnot. But really, really pretty day. I think last time we did Getting to Know Us, I talked about, the poor weather the weekend before and the fact that we talked about the canopy course, and you guys were giving me a hard time about what a canopy is. But those jumpers came back out on Sunday. And typically they're not looking to do any free fall. So they want to get out of the airplane lower, anywhere from 3,500 feet to like 6,000 feet above ground level, just to be able to go through their canopy drills or set up their landing or do whatever they need to do. So I flew, how many floats did I fly? I flew 13 loads on Sunday, and all but one had a low pass, which is good. Except it's low passes, especially in our caravan, are just very demanding on the pilot in terms of how quickly things happen and getting things set up in coordination with air traffic control and local traffic communications, and trying to figure out, every single pass that we did, they wanted a different altitude. So trying to remember, okay, which one do they want this time? 3,500, 6,000, back and forth. But it's good. I was up for the challenge of it. I think it all went reasonably well. And
They still love you, Steph.
Yeah, we did good. And we did some other flying on Sunday night, which I won't go into all the details of, but I did get to fly our 182, so I got my carbureted engine time in. So
Was that the naked jump?
those were naked jumps, yes.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
what they were.
Those are always fun, especially this time of year.
Yes.
You have some slides on that, Liz says.
Do I have some slides on that? I was not allowed to take photographs.
Oh, okay.
But yes, it was a great weekend. A lot
Shrinkage.
of flying, and I'm glad I I was asked to swap out. I was not supposed to fly this past weekend, but the pilot who was supposed to could not do so. So we switched last weekend for the coming weekend, and this weekend the weather looks terrible again. So I'm glad I had a nice weekend of flying.
Glad you got some flying in.
Yeah,
That's
and
cool.
I have to put together. We have our annual safety day talks coming up on Saturday. So I give the honors of doing the aircraft related safety considerations. So
Which is very important.
So yeah, we lead off the day with it, to be honest. So yeah, I have the previous year's PowerPoints, which is just a conglomeration of everyone who's done it in the past. Just keeps old stuff, adds new stuff. I'm just gonna go through it and tweak it and make it my own.
Nice.
It's already got the right information.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Steph. Captain Nick, how was
Yes, sir.
how's that neck and back and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah,
All your
not
parts?
good. Not good.
Yeah?
I've been on
Captain
it's
Neck.
been a few days now, and it's really rather sore. Anyway,
Well, it looks pretty cold
Pardon
where
me.
you are there. I see the snow behind you in the
well,
window and the backyard.
up
the
in Scotland,
garden.
which isn't that far north, it's minus, pardon me, 15 degrees centigrade. So that's pretty chilly tonight. We've had a fair amount of snow today down here, but it's bordering on zero. So, it's melting almost as fast as it comes down. So no big deal. Although some of the little country lanes have been a bit snowed out. Anyway, managed to bowl today and came up with a draw. That was a good game. Enjoyed it anyway. And bowling throughout the rest of the week, which is fine. Next week, tomorrow, a week tomorrow, I'll be in the Isle of Wight giving a talk to the Royal Aeronautical Society, Isle of Wight branch. So looking forward to that. And as I mentioned last week, if you're sort of in the area, I'm sure they will allow visitors.
Topic?
It's my usual talk of chasing bears in a phantom. So that's
nice.
that. And what else is happening? Yeah, I was trying to organize a meetup with Sam and Garrett, the two pilots who frequently fly into London. But you'll remember that I had a major hack of my Facebook and email address, and
they did
all
it?
the nasties to go along with that. That is still ongoing, but I've managed to get control of some of my social media. But we were communicating, I'm pretty sure, on Messenger, and I've yet to manage to get Messenger back online again. So, guys, if you're trying to get in contact with me, you might want to send it either to my APG address, nick@airlinepilotguide.com, and let me know if you've managed to find some dates when you can both come. We were going to go and meet at the meet up in London and go to the Science Museum because they have an aviation wing there, which I have never seen. And I would be quite interested to see it. I've mentioned it a few times because aircraft that I've talked about are apparently in the Science Museum, but never seen it. So Sam and Garrett, if you're trying to get in contact with me and you can't, my apologies, but my my various accounts are in a security nightmare and various lockdowns, and someone has been posting stuff that purporting to be me, and it's very tasteless. So I've infringed
Boeing
community
comments,
standards,
pro
as they
Boeing
say.
comments.
Yeah. Very offensive.
No, not so
Rude.
much. No, more like pictures of terrorists. So there you go. Anyway, that's if you see any of that stuff on my accounts, it's not me. I promise you. What else can I say? Not much, really. Just possibly mention the artwork.
Before
Jeff,
you do that, it looks like I'm looking at your window behind you there, and is that your little robot lawn mowing device out there? You probably want to bring that in because it looks like it's
It's going to get some
snowing.
icing.
Yeah, it's going to get icing for sure.
Yeah, it is. Isn't it?
Carburetor ice.
Poor thing. No. Luckily, it hasn't been out there. Although the dogs have been out running around in the snow, having a good big time. They love it.
Oh, okay.
Always. It's great.
Okay, yeah, cover art. Yes, please.
Yeah, I was going to mention that you very kindly found an interesting way of getting hold of artwork, which involves using an artificial intelligence. Part of a program you can find on midjourney.com, and it takes a little getting your head around, because it's not like any art program that I've ever used. You type in to almost like a blog, a message with various keywords, and the AI interprets that and produces a piece of artwork, which we did this time for the theme of In a Hot Mess. And I can't quite work out whether that's you, me, or some other devil.
Almost like a combination of the two of us. Somebody, I think Brent was saying it looked like Geraldo. One of our people over here in the U.S.
Well, I think it's great. It's going to take a little bit of getting used to.
Rivera.
But it is a fascinating concept, and we'll see how that goes, whether it's worth keeping going. But that was certainly great fun creating that one.
And there was an alternative version of that, and I chose
there was
this
a lady
one.
version.
Yeah, and I like the one that we were just showing there, but I'm going to show you the alternative version. There we go.
Well, it was here that I discovered that In a Hot Mess seems to be associated with a record and a group, and it was all to do with Reno 911, which was a police comedy in the States. I didn't know anything about it, but apparently there's a character on there called Clemmy, who was a very hot lady. So that's what the artwork produced for me. I did alter it obviously a little by putting bits and pieces on it, like the name tag and the shoulder patch.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, the artwork did it, and the text, of course, the title. Other than that, the AI did it all by itself. It's very impressive.
Now, I've seen a few episodes of Reno 911, and I don't remember this particular song or whatever.
It doesn't quite look like her. It's not. No. It's not, the face looks different. But Clemmy was someone who wore her blouse well unbuttoned and was a bit flirty. I gather that's what the write-up on Wikipedia
It's been a long time since I've seen any Reno 911 episodes. They're quite funny, though.
And that just reminds me, and Liz reminded me that I flew with a guy once when we used to have lockers in the pilot lounge, when we had flight kits, and you put your flight kit in the locker and everything else. And I opened up my locker, and this guy had this picture of Lieutenant Jim Dangle, or whatever, I don't know what his rank was, but one of the officers of Reno 911. He said, you remind me of Jim Dangle.
That's right.
You're wearing shorts. Someone, thanks.
That's the guy with the very tight shorts.
Very short shorts, tight shorts.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
I don't know why I never wore tight shorts when we were on layovers or anything. I don't know what he was talking about, but anyway, I thought it was funny.
I'm sure it was more of the mustache.
Maybe. I don't know. What have I been up to, Liz? I've been up to trying to figure out how to put together 3 parts of a episode 559 together, and then go out and fly and try to finish editing and publishing before we record 560, which is what we're doing right now. So, and in the midst of that, I was singing, of course, at my church, and then going out on a trip Monday night through Wednesday morning, which is this morning, with Brent. This is the last month that I'm going to be flying with First Officer Brent, because he was just advised that he is going to upgrade training in the first part of April. So this is it.
Wow.
So
Good luck
this
to
is
him. Please pass on our best.
Congratulations to Brent.
I will. What a great guy. I'm really enjoying. And this month, these trips are like unlike any that we've seen in a while. They're just really pretty good. Now, next month, it goes back to, or reverts to crap. But, without Brent, too, it's going to be even worse. Oh, well, a little sad. Yeah.
Back to the Wichita.
Time to
layovers.
retire.
Yeah. Back to Wichita. Yeah. Ugh. No. I'm sure that
I'll have to get Brent's contact information and start meeting up with him.
Yeah,
when
because
he
he's
comes out
probably
here.
going to be heading out there every now and then.
after the last trip when me and him just about left you behind. Because
I know. It's like, hello, hey, I'm still here. I love that though. Actually, that's pretty cool. That you guys have a good relationship. That's a lot better than mine. Okay, let's go over here to this and play. What are we doing now? Coffee Fund? Yes, Coffee Fund.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
Now we sing.
I love
Coffee, I love tea, I love the APG community. Coffee and tea, and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup. Oh, yeah. You don't hear her, but you will if you're listening to the audio-only podcast. Liz singing along with me, the Coffee Fund. Do you want to join a group of amazing people who support us financially? Well, let me tell you how you do that. A couple different ways. Head over to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. You'll find out about the Coffee Fund Classic method, which is your way to kind of contribute via a one-off kind of thing. Basically, that's what it's set for, although there are some people who do recurring donations as well. We thank them. Since the last episode, we have Mazuz Karim, and he's kind of a recurring donor. About once a month, he gives us a very generous donation. Thank you, Mazuz, for doing that. And thank you all of you who we don't mention anymore, but have recurring donations as well. We do appreciate that. The other way to support us in a recurring way is via Patreon. Excuse me. Patreon.com/airlinepilotguy. It's your way to support the show on a episode per episode, kind of a pledge, and you can set a maximum amount and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, go over to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. You'll find out how to do both of those methods. And we're happy that many of you do that. Do appreciate it. And now it's time for us to move to our feedback segment.
Captain, incoming message.
All right, so we're taking a little technical break because we have some physiological.
Is that a technical break or a physiologic break?
I think it's a physiological break.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or it could be a technically physiological. I don't know how technical you want to get with the physiological.
I don't want to get that technical.
Yeah, I think I've had too much wine. I'm having trouble with my words.
No. Yes, I've cut myself off on the alcoholic beverages. I'll not be consuming any further tonight.
Oh, well, good for you. Yeah,
I only had the one because I was thirsty when I got home.
Well, you
and
have
it was a low
physical activity.
I have new shoes that I need to test out on the treadmill.
With pink heels.
I know. Hold on, while we're on our break here, I'll show everyone who's watching. Box sounds.
Look at those.
Oh, nice.
I know.
Wow.
Nitro. What's the
They're
Puma?
Pumas. Mm-hmm.
Puma Nitro.
They're
They're
racing
pretty
shoe. They've got
fancy.
Oh yeah, a little carbon plate in here.
Wow.
Lots of foamy things happening in the heels.
They look expensive.
They were.
And are.
They are. If they're not comfortable or what I'm looking for, they will be returned because I would like.
Now,
my
how
money back in that
long
case.
does one of those shoes, or I guess both, last?
So, if these shoes function the
Depends
way
whether
that
you
I
hop a lot.
I am hoping, yeah, just one, that I am hoping that they will, I will probably run 2 to 3 marathons in them and do some additional like
Oh.
track work.
That's money well spent.
It's like
Well, 100 miles. I don't know if the tires on my car
like
all out in 100 miles, I'd be a bit annoyed.
no, I'll wear them for probably close to 300 miles total.
All right.
Wow.
Cool.
Maybe.
Pretty good.
Depends. So after I like retire them from racing, I'll still train in them probably. That's what I do with my other racing shoes for another couple months before I ditch them for something new.
I had to give up athletic endeavors when I decided to start buying Made in America stuff because I couldn't find any good Made in America athletic shoes. So I was like, I could do what everybody else does and buy, actual footwear, or I could just have an excuse for.
Yeah, not
These were not
doing anything
these were not
athletic
made
anymore.
in America. I just would like you to know.
Oh, there's no. New Balance makes like walking shoes.
Yeah.
That are, I mean, they
These-
call them running shoes.
On the box, these say that they were made in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Cool.
Vietnamese Pumas.
Yeah, I love Vietnamese cuisine.
That is
And
good.
shoes.
And shoes.
Okay.
I never
So
knew they
let's.
had pumas in Vietnam. Well, I know.
Yeah, well, there's all kinds of criminals? No, animals.
Animals? Animal?
Creatures, animals, criminals.
I didn't realize that Puma was another word that you and Liz pronounced differently. than us.
Yeah. I'd
How do
never
you say it?
Puma. Just Puma.
Puma, yeah.
Puma, not Puma.
As in P-O-O-M-A-R.
Puma.
Yeah.
Oh.
You would immediately go to the toilet talk, Captain Nick.
Okay, Liz, we're going. Didn't I already play it? I thought I did. Let's play
Play it
again.
again.
Here we go. Feedback bumper.
Captain. Incoming message.
Thank you. All right. Now, this is awesome, I think. A gentleman named, well, I'm assuming he's a gentleman, Oliver. You've heard his voice, by the way. We talked about this incident. Was it last show, Liz? Okay. One of those parts that we just did. There was an incident, a go-around and near-miss kind of situation in Burbank, California. And there was a general aviation aircraft out there flying around. And I think he was the first transmission that we heard. It was November 1547 Charlie. And so this person named Oliver sent this in to us. He says, "Hey, crew. Not sure I have any feedback worth reading on the air. Are you kidding me? But one note, the field elevation at Burbank is 778 feet, so 1,000 MSL is about 300 feet above the ground. I was the pilot for November 1547 Charlie, the light aircraft for the Burbank incident, and was also sent around at about 300 to 400 feet above ground. I feel like the situation happened because I was trying to land on 2.6 due to the winds, but also I don't think that the situation was my fault." He put some parentheses, or not parentheses, quotes. Any feedback for me on what I could have done differently? I think maybe I should have asked for 2.6 again, but the wind had just been variable at 6 prior to her reading me the latest wind info. I figured I'd try to make it down in the crosswind and just go around again if it didn't work. And he says, I ended up greasing it. Oliver. Well, that's the way we do at the APG, especially our APG community members are like the best pilots in the world. And of course, we wouldn't have assumed anything different from you, Oliver. You obviously would have
there's
greased
nothing
it on.
quite like a greasy listener.
Well, not exactly the way I would have put that, but so I.
Can you so for those of us who weren't the ones discussing this and people who may not have even had a chance to listen to that episode yet, just refresh the basics of what happened in
Okay.
in
Go
this
ahead.
situation? No, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
That's why I'm asking.
Okay, so
I think you
there
discussed it
was-
on a different part. I was not.
There
on that
was
part.
a couple of regional jets. One had been given line up and wait on a runway 33, I believe, and another regional, I think it was an air shuttle, I'm not sure exactly, coming in on final. But Oliver was just minding his own business out there and flying an approach to runway 26, a visual approach. And I think at some point the controller decided or realized that this is all not going to work and all these airplanes are going to be all at the same place at the same time. So she told Oliver to discontinue his approach, or maybe she said go around, I'm not sure, and then like turn a crosswind. And she didn't say left or right crosswind. I believe Oliver asked which way she wanted him to turn, and she said, and he's on 26, and she told him to turn a crosswind for runway 33. Now, honestly, when I was looking at this, I'm going, I'm not sure which way I would turn in this situation. When you're going to 26, she tells you to join a crosswind for runway 33. I don't know which way to go either. But then she clarified left crosswind. So he was out there. In the meantime, the lineup and wait jet was starting the takeoff roll, and the guy coming in, or I say guy, the pilots coming in from on approach to runway 33 decided that there wasn't going to be separation. So they went ahead, instead of trying to land, they went ahead and went around. And then the takeoff airplane was flying the departure procedure, and the guy on the go around was flying the missed approach instructions, and they were kind of basically almost flying over the top of each other. Again, kind of one of those instances that we've talked about before, where somebody's going around and somebody's taking off and they're flying into each other and all that kind of stuff. Oh, okay. So Liz has just informed me that she's thrown this in. Yes, 1H, if you crew want to look at this. And it was a video, VAS aviation video.
I was just looking for kind of the basics on it, just to kind
this
of
the basics
refresh everyone's
was
memory on. That
there
makes
was
sense.
something.
There was just a lot happening, and everyone kind of in each other's space.
And Oliver, I thought it was pretty funny. He probably didn't. But he was going like, after all this was going on, he's going like, okay, what would you like me to do here? I'm still here, by the way. I'm still flying. And I think she asked something like, yeah, do you still want to land here? Yeah, I still want to land. If I recall the situation correctly. But yeah, Oliver, heck, no, you were not. This is not your fault in any way. You were out there doing your thing, and these regional flights, these Yahoo regional pilots out there were screwing things up for you. And so I think, yeah, let's see if I can, do I have that available to me right now? I don't know. Let's see. I think I do. Yeehaw! I do. Yes. That's a major win for me today for sound effects. Yes, it does feel good, Liz. So
I mean, without having, I didn't listen to all the audio for that. I'll go back and listen to it at some point, Oliver. But I mean, it sounds like you did the right thing. You queried, for clarification on the instruction, because it wasn't a clear instruction.
No, it was not.
Maintain situational awareness about what's happening with the other two aircraft that are, trying to figure out where they're going. The one flying their missed approach, and the other one doing their departure procedure. And then, basically, when it's an appropriate time, try and figure out how to work back in.
Exactly.
All sounds good.
And I think I even mentioned when we were covering this, I think the last wind call out that the tower controller made was winds kind of coming out of the west at a 15 knot gust. And I even made the comment like, whoa, that's sporty.
Yeah, it's sporty for a
light airplane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a gusty 15 knot crosswind isn't terribly fun, even on a long runway.
Mm-hmm. And so good on you. You greased it on. That's awesome. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think you did anything wrong, and it certainly wasn't your fault. You just happened to be, in the wrong place at the wrong time, I guess.
Yeah, right place at the right time for, I said the right place at the right time.
Or the right, yeah, I always get that wrong. I always say that wrong. But the main thing to say about this, Liz, go ahead and put that up there. It's a small world. Can you believe that we're covering this incident that a lot of people are talking about, a lot of places, and Oliver is one of our community members, and he was there during the thing. What a small
I'd also
world.
say thanks for not being hesitant to send in some feedback about it and ask for feedback. I mean, I think that's what all of us should be doing as pilots and professionals, continuing to try and improve and grow.
I agree. Yeah, you nailed it, man. Thank you, Oliver, and that's thank you for setting the example for others to like contact us and reach out and say, hey, did I do this right? You did. I think you did a great job. Yeah, we'll tell you. We'll let you know. Okay. 3B. Okay, this is feedback from Brent. Not my favorite first officer, Brent. Brent Brakop or Breakop. We like Brent, but he's not my first officer. So, yeah. Let's see. I gotta load up a video here, and so I'll just take a moment. And okay, open. Okay, it's ready to go. Okay. Hello, APG crew. A friend of mine received news today of a family friend that passed away. Jim Anderson, a former TWA pilot that retired in 1989. Now, I'll just stop by saying anybody with the last name of Anderson is probably not a very good pilot, but we'll go ahead and cover this anyway. Just kidding.
You horrid man.
Jim's son included a video of his dad during the 1980s that deserves being shared with the APG community. I feel we could celebrate Jim by watching him demonstrate the value and enjoyment of good old-fashioned chair flying at its best. So next time we need recurrent work on flows or learn a new airplane, remember you can make it fun with family and friends, as Jim shows. Jim was a former LaGuardia chief pilot and flew Captain Jeff's beloved L-1011. Cheers, everyone. Brent. And so I think now we're going to watch Jim Anderson do some good old-fashioned chair flying. Dad practicing to fly the L-1011. One summer in the 1980s, Dad had not worked much. He had been off for well over a month. He was on call but never received any assignments. Thinking he may get rusty, he decided to brush up on his skills. And so we're looking at the...
Ralph, we have takeoff clearance. Will you alert the flight attendants to be seated, please?
A paper
Billy,
tiger.
Read the before takeoff checklist.
He's in his uniform shirt.
On.
He's got his captain's hat on.
Check. Check. Okay, ready?
Okay, now he's got the
Trim
yoke
the
and
throttles, Ralph.
pushing the throttles up. It's a Lockheed L-1011. It takes a lot of muscle.
Oh yeah, pull it up. Yeah. Clear the right. Ops 5. Ops 1.
He's
He's laughing. You can't even keep a straight face doing it. That's
I
great.
think he must have been a really great guy and a very funny person. Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. Thank you, Brent, for sending that in. Jim Anderson, thank you, sir. A salute from all of us.
Absolutely. When I think of the hours and hours I spent in fixed base trainers doing exactly that, I think, oh God, takes me back.
Yeah, that was good. All right, let's continue on with the next item, which is some feedback from Els Piloto or Pilato. No nonsense, no TAMs. He sent us a link to that video that we already covered, the ops group guide, the field guide to no TAMs, which is just awesome. So just a reminder, if you haven't watched that yet, please do. Hi, Jeff and crew. I'm back for another one of my mad ramblings. And we're back to NOTAMs. Yes, notice to air missions. For the benefit of your listeners who do not know what it is to have lost years and youth to these soul-sucking pages. NOTAMs are defined as manure piles of useless aeronautical information containing small gems of vital career-saving information, which are disseminated to aircrew by failed novelists. In a number of countries, said failed novelists are clearly paid per word written, with added bonuses for use of such words no person outside of the Oxford University Library would understand, such as bifurcation. Yes, you, India.
I feel seen. I use that word all the time.
Bifurcation is like the devil's tail, right?
It's a split in something.
Yeah.
I mean, we use it to describe like how arteries and blood vessels and things bifurcate.
Oh, I just remember it out of a quote from a movie with Clooney. I forgot what the movie is, but it's a good movie. Talking about the devil and his bifurcated tail.
Yeah, it fits.
Yeah. So wind back a few days, and to the fresh, steaming stack of manure sat in front of me while I prepared for a flight to Japan from the Middle East at 2 a.m. in the morning. My latest rambling was ignited. Maybe it had to do with the fatigue that had set in as I reached airport NOTAMs on the Japanese mainland after having to read through 62 pages. 62 pages of Pakistani, Indian, Chinese, and Korean NOTAMs to pick out the only one nugget that would save me from embarrassment and or a good telling off. In this case, a temporary airway reroute in Chinese airspace, of which Captain Nick is aware, results in heavy fines to the airline if not flown correctly. There in Romeo Juliet Bravo Bravo, Osaka, the most idiotic NOTAM of all. Here's the quote. Grooving for runway 6 left, 24 right, gradually installed or erased. You, what?
I feel like that got put through the standard Japanese Google Translate machine that comes up with some real nonsense English.
Well, you know, that grooving is gradually installed or erased. I mean,
it's
either
one or
one.
the other.
Groovy, man.
This NOTAM was then followed by several NOTAMs similar to this one. RCLL, runway center line lighting, for runway 6 left, 24 right, unsurfaceable. Exact time will be notified by further NOTAM. What am I supposed to do with that? So they wrote a NOTAM to tell me a NOTAM is coming after this NOTAM. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Notice. There will be a notice.
There will be something further in the future. Just writing this has drained my will to live. I'm going to bed. May your NOTAM package be light and your dispatcher generous with fuel. El Spalato.
If ever.
That's so good.
The fact that they were written in tiny print, double-sided on A4, and you still got 50, 60, 70 pages of them. It was impossible.
I mean, domestically, we fly from here to Atlanta to Greenville, Spartanburg.
Or Greenville, Spartanburg, yeah.
20 minutes flight. And they're like, I don't know how many pages, 20 pages of NOTAMs?
Yeah.
Really? Come on.
It's a lot of
Is there
cranes.
anything there that's really important? No. Crazy. Well, you know what NOTAMs are.
That's what NOTAMs are. They're just a bunch of garbage that nobody pays any attention to.
Yep.
Yeah,
Former.
until you're in a court of law.
Yes. Yeah. And then you'll be spanked for not catching that one NOTAM that could have saved your career. All right. Well, thank you very much, El Spaloto, for sending that in and continuing on with this. This is one of Captain Nick's favorite subjects, balloons. Ham Radio Jim. We haven't heard from you in a while, Ham Radio Jim. Why doesn't the U.S. Air Force use bullets to deflate these balloons instead of multi-million-dollar missiles, or missiles if you prefer? They might be easier to track once hit. Maybe they will remain intact enough to salvage. Just a thought. What do you think, Nick? So you responded to Ham Radio
Well,
Jim.
I did. I I said we discussed it on the show. And I did send him a quick email as a reply, and it just did it off the top of my head over the breakfast table. But the problem with shooting down a balloon, I mean, it's pretty hard when they were observers' balloons in the First World War, when the fighters only did, I don't know, 50, 60 miles an hour. And they were flying very low. But when you're trying to hit a balloon that's effectively stationary, in the upper atmosphere, 60, 70,000, some of these have got to. The fighter is doing a very high true airspeed, so the closure rate is enormous. They're going to be doing in the region of 500 or 600 knots closure rate. And the range of the weapon isn't that great. It's a few thousand feet, and at that speed, your break-off distance is going to be very high, so you're only going to get a very short burst in, and the explosive rounds are never going to detonate against the thin skin of the balloon, so they're just going to go straight through it, leaving a relatively small hole, which isn't really, it's a big piece of kit. It isn't really going to affect it at all. It's going to carry on ad infinitum, even with a bunch of holes in it. So yeah, the risk of collision would be very high, because don't forget your fighter is not maneuvering well at that. You got a lot of inertia when you're doing 500 or 600 knots true airspeed, but your indicated airspeed is very low. So you're down at say 200 or 300 knots. And you can't maneuver the aircraft very well. And if you're so high that you have to go supersonic to get a good speed, that's going to be even worse. So not a safe maneuver to try and strafe something with the gun. It's just too short range, and your closure rate is too fast. So the missile was the obvious weapon to use, because whether it be a heat source or a radar source, you can home the missile in, and it stands a good chance of fusing on it. So I think the choice was great. And, the boys that are flying these maneuvers, and they've got very sophisticated aircraft, and they know their stuff. They know what the best weapon is. And, missiles don't last forever. So it's not exactly a waste of a missile. They're going to life out eventually, so you stick an old one on there probably.
Why not use it?
One nearing its expiration date.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's like when you're getting, food at the 7-Eleven.
And make sure you get it down, shoot the balloon down. I haven't heard much about what the package is, the instrument packages were. Do we really know what these guys were doing?
Yeah, it's been very quiet. Very quiet.
Yes, it has gone super quiet.
Well, don't look over here. Nothing here to see. Tim Van Ram says, you don't want to brag about short bursts.
Yeah, well, if you
depends on how many
of them.
Yeah.
If you got a lot of short bursts, it's pretty impressive.
It's endurance.
Okay.
There you
go. Let's see if I can find something appropriate.
Wow, that's a lot.
Very impressive.
Yeah. Let's see. Neil says a British pilot would deflate the balloon with their razor-sharp wit.
Absolutely, yes. Curse you, Red Baron.
Or at least they think that they have that. Okay. Continuing on with Nigel. November Echo Whiskey. Okay. Now, Nigel Ward in the chat room. And he says, hello, APG crew. I'm a new listener to your eloquent podcast. Oh, my gosh. He must have hit his head on something.
Wow.
He says he must be a drinker. You all were recommended to me by my uncle, who is something of an aviation hobbyist. He sent feedback on a few episodes recently. I'm November Echo Whiskey, and my uncle is Sierra Bravo. I think these people think that we're the opposing
Are they
bases
sending
podcast.
feedback into opposing bases?
Yeah.
This is the airline pilot guy. You can use real names here. Really.
Yeah, we like names.
Yeah.
Okay. It's I've been diving into aviation since September, and the aviation alphabet was the first thing that stuck out to me, so much so that I've taken the nomenclature to an to an obnoxious level, admittedly.
Ah, well, there it is. He's just enjoying the the alphabet. Yeah.
Has nothing to do with the opposing bases. Okay, we'll cut him some slack. Nonetheless, I enjoy the lingo and the cryptographic nature it can have just as much as I've enjoyed getting my aviation knowledge to grow and become airborne. Anyway, I have a question mostly designed for Captain Nick, but anyone can answer if he or she feels so inclined. I'm a budding fighter pilot. I'm currently training for OCS, which is Officer Candidate School, and making progress towards a private pilot license. My question is, what should I focus on with regard to my flight study that would be most applicable to the fighter pilot training that I'll eventually go through after having passed OCS and basic training? I've made the rounds of aviation podcasts, including Vincent Jello Aiello's, I think that's what he says, Fighter Pilot Podcast. That one and yours are my favorite aviation voices to listen to. I really appreciate your work, especially Captain Nick's Plane Tales. Thanks for reading, and I look forward to continue listening to you all. Very respectfully, November Echo Whiskey. And I'll just start off by saying, well, if you have a very high sense of yourself, a very high impression
Opinion?
or
Opinion?
Yes, that's the word I'm looking for, of yourself, then you'll be right in there for it. No, just kidding. Fighter pilots, we give fighter pilots a bad name or a bad something.
You can always tell a fighter pilot, but you can't tell him much.
That's true. And how do you know he is a fighter pilot? Well,
you don't have to ask.
No, he'll tell you.
So tell me, we're talking about university study qualifications or what?
I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
Training for OCS. I'm not sure exactly what he means by that, but go ahead. Steph.
Well, if you're talking about what kind of training you should be doing, you're doing your private pilot license level. What kind of flight training you're doing? Well, get a good grip of the basics is important in any world, because there's one thing that a fighter pilot has to do is he has to do flying the aircraft and doing everything that most commercial pilots do with it: take off, land, go from A to B, deal with emergencies, all that. It has to be absolute second nature, because don't forget, when you're a military pilot, the airplane is now your weapons platform. And all the ancillary stuff you're doing that everyone else is the entirety of everyone else's world is pushed to one side. Everyone expects you to be able to get airborne safely, depart in a close formation, get from A to B, and do a recovery and get all your aircraft in your formation back safely on the ground. And that's sort of dealt with in 10 seconds in the brief and barely talked about in the debrief. What you need to concentrate on is actually using your aircraft as a weapon. So that's where all your study is. So when you're starting off, you've just got to learn to fly your machine just absolutely the best standard you can, so that it becomes completely natural and you can almost forget about that aspect of your flying, so that you can concentrate in using your aircraft in the way it's intended, so that your flying becomes second nature. Wouldn't worry too much at the early stages. The military will teach you everything you need to know, and they will do it in, albeit very fast, but very simple progressive steps, so that almost everyone can keep up. They don't want you to fail, they want you to succeed. So you'll be given a bit of flex if you're not coping, but most people will, if you've got the right bent towards military flying, most people will just launch up that flight of stairs and they won't have a problem at all. That's about all I can say, really, because I don't know a great deal about flight training in the United States or flight training that occurs nowadays compared with what I did 45 years ago.
I mean, I think you're 100% correct there, Captain Nick. I think, and I see this in other professions and fields as well, where there's, especially as someone is getting into their field and they're excited about all of the things related to it, there's a tendency to want to look forward, look ahead to what's coming next. And it can be really hard to stay in that moment of here's what I really need to focus on right now, which is those foundation steps and building blocks. So be really good at that, and then everything else will come easier down the road.
Yeah, you need a hugely solid base of flying ability to then be able to almost dismiss that, make that almost autonomous, so that you can concentrate on using your aircraft as a weapon. So you build those building blocks, those early building blocks, very solidly, so that you can do everything to the best of your ability, and then everything else will come naturally.
I can't add anything else to that. You guys are just nailing it. And let's see, Super Fred Driver in our live audience says, OCS, long way off from fighter life. Master the basics and focus on the airplane you're in. Don't focus on the T-38 while you're still learning the T-6. Signed, a former UPT instructor.
Yeah.
Hey, Super Fred Driver, I'm a former UPT instructor as well, and I couldn't have said it better.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, Liz
and
has
good
something
luck.
to
That's
tell me.
all I can say. Good luck.
Study hard.
Okay. Liz says if he's interested in the phonetic alphabet, he should listen to the Plain Tale in episode 302, where Captain Nick eloquently covers the phonetic alphabet.
I think it's called Charlie Alpha Papa Tango. No, it doesn't. It's in an old-fashioned version of the phonetic alphabet.
Say it again, Liz.
It's a Plain Tale all about the origins of the phonetic alphabet.
It's longer than this, but it's called Coca, Abel, Peter, Tokyo, something, Nan, King, something. Like
Yeah. Something.
Nailed it.
Something. I don't know. It's crazy. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, great advice. Yeah. You just have to master the basics so that it's just second nature, because you just got to use your airplane.
When you get to where you want to be, you have to have a very solid understanding of the basics of flying, so that you don't worry about doing that anymore. You concentrate on things like pointing your airplane at the ground and dropping bombs and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Okay. All right. So the next one is also from November Echo Whiskey, or Nigel, we like to call him. He says, I have a question regarding the kinds of airspaces in the United States. It has to do with
I'm just going to turn my mic off now.
It's okay.
You can
it's
hang
okay.
out.
I have an answer to this. I think probably Nick C has an answer, and Rick has chimed in with his answer as well.
And Nick and I will stand back.
Yeah, you can, take
In fact, I'm going to hand over. You have the aircraft stuff.
Oh, my controls.
Yep.
All right, he says, hello, APG crew. I have a question regarding the kinds of airspaces in the U.S. It has to do with a quiz question I have received on previous tests for, quote, air combat, close quote. To me, having read sources online and asked others, I have found it difficult to answer what should be a simple question. Anyways, I have received the question that reads, the two main types of airspaces inside the U.S. are A, Class A and B, B, controlled and uncontrolled, C, IFR and VFR, D, IMC and VMC. I have always answered B, that's controlled and uncontrolled. But I get pushback because technically those are subcategories. I know Class A and Class B are subcategories. Also, the word main is throwing me off slightly because it implies that there could be a generally accepted answer that would not necessarily align with the FAA handbook, and I'm pretty certain that this could be the case here unless I'm wrong, which would not surprise me. I hate to be the one who asks for answers on tests, but I've searched the FAA handbook and website, by the way, both of which say regulatory and non-regulatory, and online forums for this answer, and I get conflicting responses from the sources. Again, for what it's worth, I think the answer is B. If the crew has an opinion or definitively knows, I would love to hear your thoughts. Very respectfully, November Echo Whiskey. Should we read Rick's answer, which he emailed back to him first?
Yeah, why not?
And then we'll open it up for debate. If actually, and I have a definitive answer for November Echo Whiskey. Well, as definitive as I was able to find, because this is actually I've actually seen debate on this question, so I don't know where this question comes from and what else it's being used for. But anyway, Rick says, given the available choices and by simple process of elimination, I'm with you that the answer here is B. Okay. I looked this up in the FAA's Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, I think is the actual name of the book. And there's a whole chapter on airspace. And I think this is where November Echo Whiskey got some of the information from that he was using to answer the question. But I'm just going to read what it says because it's in the introduction. It says the two categories, which is not what the question really asks. It said two main types. There are two categories of airspace, which are regulatory and non-regulatory. Within these two categories, there are four types: controlled, uncontrolled, special use, and other airspace. So the main types of airspace are controlled and uncontrolled. Those other two, special use and other airspace, are not main types. And so I agree, the answer is B. Direct from the source, the FAA.
So you're saying B.
I'm saying B.
And that's what Rick is saying.
Correct.
That is the answer that I would also use. And I think that that's what Nigel chose as well. So
yeah, I'd be curious who's telling him that
that it would be anything else.
Who's giving him pushback? I mean, I'm kind of with Rick in that it's pretty straightforward if you look at this. D is a condition and not a type of airspace. C is a flight rule and not a type of airspace. A and B are classes of airspace, as denoted by the word class right in front of the letter. So yeah, I have it's hard for me to understand
why you would get pushback. And I wonder if the pushback is actually between answer A and answer B. Like if controlled and uncontrolled is what they were looking for. I agree that perhaps the question could be, I don't know. It depends on what the question is referring to in terms of what you were taught, because certainly somewhere in your reference materials, it should be pretty clearly laid out. And I think in this case, the reference material is the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge.
I mean, far be it from me to say that the FAA has
non-ambiguous
mastered
language.
the wording of questions. Because let me tell you, going through some of the questions I've gone through recently, they haven't. But, even just saying the two main types of airspace, it's when you say main types of airspace, if they're looking for classes, it could be Class G, because there's more Class G airspace than anything else. Class A, because Class A is everywhere if you're above a certain altitude. So, yeah, I mean, I would argue that the question is just
it's not a good question.
Worded
it's just kind of it's a question to, I don't know. I'm actually not going to say what I was going to say. It kind of is written like a NOTAM. It's kind of garbage.
Bunch of garbage. Yeah.
It's not really testing what it thinks it's trying to test in this case.
Well, and also, Nigel, if you're hoping to be a fighter pilot, you have to take the attitude that whatever you decide the correct answer is, that is the correct answer. Got to have confidence.
Nick was not listening to that.
No, he's falling asleep. Hey, Nick, how you doing, man? You want to leave us?
I was
get
just
some sleep?
reading my logbook in preparation for the next plane tale.
Oh.
So I was using my time wisely. But,
Being efficient use.
He's like, U.S. airspace, I'm out. do something
Yeah,
different.
look, when I flew in American airspace, I was speaking to an air traffic controller and under their control all day, every day, and I hadn't a clue what the airspace I was flying in was, or what the rules relating to it were, and what's more, I didn't care.
It was controlled airspace.
Yes, exactly.
So it's one of the main types of airspace.
It wasn't until very recently, and I've shared this before on the show, where, you know, a lot of us at Acme were ex or former military, and, you know, we didn't really understand all the fine details of stuff like controlled airs and different classes of airspace and that kind of thing. It just wasn't like, whatever. Where I didn't understand when somebody told me that I was exiting the class Bravo. I was like, okay, like whatever. I don't understand what that means. And I know it's like, now I know that it means that you have to, you know, comply with certain speed restrictions and that kind of thing. I'm aware of it now because, like for instance, I just flew up to White Plains last week. And there's when you approach White Plains, you have to fly under a Class B shelf, and that means you have to be at or under 200 knots or your minimum clean airspeed, which is probably around 210 knots for us. I didn't have any idea what that meant until very, very, very recently. So
you've been listening to Opposing Bases then?
Opposing Bases, I love that show. And they gave me a wonderful coat, a jacket that I've been wearing a lot because it's.
Oh, does that improve your knowledge?
No, it has nothing to do with my knowledge.
It's got a little in the jacket liner on the inside are like all the crib notes for.
Yeah,
no, it just keeps me warm, and it makes it look like I know what I'm talking about when it says Opposing Bases air traffic talk. Yeah, if you need to go leave us, Nick, please do. And it's getting late.
I can manage for another half hour. How long we got?
I don't know. How much longer, Liz? 45 minutes, she says. I don't know if we want to go that long.
I can manage that. I've got one.
We can go for another half an hour or so. Yeah. We'll make it a shorter show. Okay. Well, good. I'm glad to hear that you want to stay with us. All right. So let's move over to, and thank you again, Nigel, for that question. And yes, you were right. I think we all agree. I mentioned earlier, we talked about the preliminary report on this Austin Bergstrom incident with the FedEx and the Southwest. Well, R.D. Reimer sent in this feedback. He says, check out Austin Revisited, The Quest for Heroes on the AvWeb site /newsletter. They reference an airline pilot friend who is critical of the actions of the FedEx pilots. Would be interested in the APG crew reaction to this. All right, so from AvWeb, accident investigation by its very nature requires second guessing. In fact, it's defined by second guessing based on disclosed factual information. Sometimes the findings are as black and white as these things can get, say a fuel exhaustion accident, a stall spin incident, or landing gear up. The nut behind the wheel catches the blame because no other culprits are in evidence. The recent loss of separation incident at Austin, loss of separation being the more clinical term than near disaster, will probably be a lot murkier. In that context, an airline pilot friend of mine is grinding me about giving the FedEx pilots too much credit for saving the day. To spare you the slog through the video, the executive summary is that in RVR weather where the tower controller couldn't see the runway, he cleared a Southwest 737 for takeoff with the FedEx 76 on a 3-mile final. The gap was apparently too tight, and although the Southwest flight acknowledged the inbound traffic, the tape appears to show that Southwest took 63 seconds to get on the runway and start their takeoff roll. The tape also suggests that the FedEx pilots figured out the sequence was too close and executed a go-around. In the process, they ordered the Southwest jet to abort its takeoff roll, evidently worried that it would climb into them as they flew the mist. The geometry suggests that wouldn't have happened. That's in parentheses. Not sure I agree with that. My friend believes FedEx will get dinged for both what may have been a late go-around and for issuing an utterly non-standard command to another airplane. He's probably right on both counts, although the go-around point remains to be documented, as does how the go-around was flown with regard to climb rate. Okay, just stopping here for a moment. I think when this was written, it was probably before the preliminary report and the fact that the FedEx first officer saw the Southwest jet and where they were on the runway. So that is an important point, I think. So going back to this, this is the classic no good deed goes unpunished. His argument is that if FedEx may have saved the day by exercising good judgment on the go-around, they should have done better by exercising it earlier, in which case there would have been no loss of separation and no evening news stories. Judgment. And rendered after the fact, it's always easier than doing it on the fly with seconds to decide. To me, this eliminates a level of expectation that most of us don't think about, and it's this. If someone screws up, or someone else screws up, a pilot in command, as pilot in command, are you on the hook to see and figure out how to fix it? In a way, that's what the Austin incident is about. Here's a simple example. In visual conditions, you're on short final, and the airplane crosses the runway just as you approach the flare. In your judgment repeated for emphasis, there's not enough margin for you to go around. No, there's not enough margin, so you go around. Whether the controller cleared the airplane across is immaterial. You judged it too tight. Are you right? Of course you are. I can't think of many, really any circumstances where a go-around is wrong, even though another pilot in the same circumstance might continue because he or she judges it acceptable. And yes, this includes the insanely busy pattern at Oshkosh. And yes, controllers have been surprised by unexpected go-arounds, but they're not supposed to build sequences that don't allow for same. Now, freight the same situation. Freight? No. I don't know if that's the right word here. Now, freight the same situation with low IMC barely at minimums. Frame the situation. Yeah, maybe frame. The same situation with low IMC barely at minimums. You're on final and you hear the controller clear a departure in front of you. There's an exception that the controller has allowed enough time for the runway separation ATC is required to provide, but absent the ability to see through the clag, are you expected to somehow sense the separation won't be adequate and act immediately by going around? Is that part of your pilot and command requirements? Would that be a reasonable judgment you're expected to make? I'd say no, although survival instinct has to figure into it, human error being ever present. Separation is based on trust, and it's reasonable to depend on it. Most of us know enough about ATC to realize the scenario I painted above would never happen, but at Austin it apparently did. What the NTSB and FAA will have to determine was whether it was reasonable to expect the FedEx pilots to surmise that the controller appeared to have messed up the sequencing with a too tight gap, and that they were in the best position to resolve the conflict. My friend thinks this is true, but I'm not so sure. There were multiple responsibilities. The controller still retained authority to order a go-around to fix the egregious error it appears that he made. Southwest had the option of declining the takeoff. Had they paused to calculate the 767 would cover 2.4 miles in a minute. Neither of these or those strike me as unreasonable. Regardless of where they began the go-around and based on the tape, FedEx still seems to be the only one of the three actors with anything like situational awareness. I agree with that. There could be more going on in the background. We'll see. One interesting twist here is that the FedEx aircraft are equipped with FLIR. What is that called? FLIR. What's that stand for? Forward-looking infrared radar.
Infrared, yes.
Okay, which may or may not have been a factor. FedEx pilot I know says it's unlikely that it would have provided a clear picture in the conditions at Austin. The whole thing puts me in mind of that classic 1995 submarine thriller, Crimson Tide. Remember Jason Robards' line at the review board after Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman got into a bloody brawl over destroying the Earth? Here's the quote. "You both created one hell of a mess. Just make it 3 instead of 2, and you've got the immediate takeaway from this incident." Okay, again, this was probably penned before we got the preliminary report regarding the fact that the FedEx first officer actually saw the Southwest jet 1,000 to 1,500 feet down the runway when they were only 150 feet above the ground. So that probably changes a little bit of
that would look. I mean, we talked about this already when we covered it in the news, but that would look exceptionally close. And I think the actions that they took, including the things that they said, part of their immediate surprise, startle response. Even knowing that it was probably tight on the separation, having listened to communications and building that mental or that situational awareness, that spatial map in their head of where everyone was. But I mean, I don't know about dinging them for saying something that maybe they should not have said. We talked about it before, but self-preservation kicks in a little bit there,
This picture we're showing right now, where the pappies are, those are pappies, right? Or is that the?
Well, it looks like them, yeah.
Yep.
So that's the touchdown point, which is generally around 1,500 feet down. So you're in the situation here and you see a 737 right there on that part of the runway.
Not a good feeling.
No, that is not going to work. I completely see.
That's a very good point, Jeff. That's about right. Yeah. The interesting thing here is that we don't actually do that many go-rounds. We don't often end up in a position where we have to make this critical decision. It's very easily, if you can see for miles and you can see a situation building and you realize it's not going to work, to make an early decision to go around. But in low visibility procedures, we're relying so much upon the air traffic controllers, and we have to trust that they actually see this situation a lot more often than we do, and they should have built up a level of judgment that makes the situation safe. They should know their limits and what we can and can't do. Obviously, we're the port of last call, because if we see a situation that is an obvious mistake, then the decision is simple. But it wasn't the case here. I don't think the FedEx crew will be criticized at all. I don't think that the Southwest crew will necessarily be criticized, but everyone could have helped the situation here. I'm not sure the FedEx crew could have done much more, but certainly their call to abort could have been better phrased and better placed, and perhaps better worded, whatever. Anyway, the main culprit here, I think we'll see, is the air traffic controller trying to squeeze a departure in when there patently wasn't enough room. That'll be the result. I don't think anyone else, other than the delay in the 737 crew getting off.
I don't even know that you can. I mean, it's like we talked about earlier with that too, though. There's so many little things that could cause that pause. A minute, 63 seconds sounds like a long time, but not if you're dealing with something unexpected that popped up right in front of you.
But on the other hand, he should be aware that he can't be seen. There's no ground radar there. And he should have said something. If he's delayed on the runway, he should say, we're not rolling, I'll be another 10 seconds or something. Just to give the controller a clue.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Agreed.
I could go on and on and on about this.
Yeah,
and other thoughts that I've had related to it, and stuff that I think about on a regular basis when I'm flying and the type of flying that I do. And all I'll say is that it's interesting sometimes to be the fly on the wall where you see things unfolding and knowing what your response is going to be in that situation, watching it happen. But having to kind of watch it play out a little bit too, because that happens
It's
sometimes.
like me sitting in the back of the cockpit on a third pilot duty because I've been called in to fill. And you can often see a situation building, and the two
That's
guys flying
exactly
the
what I'm referring
airplane.
to. Yeah.
They pick it up eventually, but they're so such a long delay. Whereas you're going, well, I can see this is going to go
This
a
isn't going to
bag of
work.
worms very
You can see so
shortly.
much more when you're sitting back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
When
'cause
you're
there's
the
no
fly on the
pressure
wall, or
you.
when you're the Monday morning quarterback, it's a lot
Yeah.
easier to go, well, how would that have ever happened? But when you're the person in one of those roles with a more narrowed focus, that's how these things happen.
Yep. For sure. Okay. Quickly with number 9, I changed a little bit. A little bit of an audible, Liz. Skylar wrote in and said, "Hello. I was wondering if you could tell me if there's an episode in which the crash was discussed, the Colgan Air Flight 3407. This was when I was still in high school and well before I had a single thought about aviation. If nothing else, maybe the APG team could squeeze this into a future episode for discussion. Thank you again and keep up the good work." Skylar from the Panhandle. And yeah, we have referred many, many times since the show began to this incident, the Colgan Air Flight crash at Buffalo, New York. But this accident occurred the 12th of February, 2009. I did not start podcasting until the fall of 2009. And I started off with the Catholic Pilot Podcast in September of 2009. And then I rebranded it in May 2011 to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. So I don't think we've actually had a specific episode where we just focused on this incident.
And there has not been a plain tale on it, to my knowledge. Yep.
No. But maybe that's an idea, Skylar. Maybe we should do that at some point, because it's definitely one of those incidents that has caused all kinds of changes in the way we do things. Yes, a seminal incident for sure. Okay. Thank you, Skylar, for that question. Number 10, Texas Anlashock says, another something on Quora. It's amusing. I had to share. Quora is one of those websites where people ask questions about things, and then supposedly knowledgeable people will answer these questions. And the question is, not trying to be rude, but why do all American fighter jets look the same? Now, I'm assuming that this question is not regarding American fighter jets all the way through in the past, but maybe just our current, what do they call, 4th and 5th generation, or 5th and 6th generation?
Yeah, nowadays.
I don't know what generation we're on anymore, but the article has a bunch of pictures of the F-22 Raptor,
F-22
and the F-35. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It works. And the F-35. And they have a similar plane form shape, and their profile is very similar as well. Of course, one's a 2-engined jet and the other is a 1-engine jet with the same sort of vertical stabilizer at their, what is that, an anhedral or a dihedral? Oh, what's that? I'm not sure. I recognize that.
The caption says, sorry, wrong picture.
Oh, sorry, wrong picture. But it looks similar to the F-35, I have to say.
Someone thinks they look like penguins.
Yeah. So there's an F-16 in the background of this one, and we're showing the front end of the F-35. So I thought that our resident fighter pilot might be able to shed some light on why these things, at least the latest generations of fighters, look extremely similar.
Well, a lot of it has to do with their stealth qualities. There's only certain features that will give an aircraft a modicum of stealth. And the rest is really around just the basic aerodynamic design of an aircraft that's supposed to be able to cruise, possibly supersonic, in military power, so it has to have quite a low supersonic drag profile. It's interesting. Aircraft design often goes in the latest trend. It's there was a trend of having variable geometry wings that died out with the Tomcat and probably a bit too late with the Tornado. And then they went to deltas with the Raphael, the Griffin, and the Eurofighter, which became the Lightning II. No, that Lightning II, that's the F-35. Sorry, what do we call it?
Yeah, whatever they call it.
Typhoon.
Yeah.
And then we moved on to the next generation, the next set of requirements, and there are only certain designs that will fulfill a brief, and they're going to be quite similar. And once more, once a designer sees another country's efforts, they go, "Oh, I wonder why he's done that." And when you look at Russian aircraft, they're particularly good. Russian designers, they're particularly good at picking up what everyone else in the world is doing,
Chinese
and
too.
saving a lot of time and effort and R&D by copying them. And the Chinese have tended to do that as well. So when someone comes up with a good design that works and provides all the requirements, it's quite common that it gets copied. So yeah, that's probably a few of the reasons, but I'm by no means an expert in this field, so I'd love to hear the views of someone else who knows more than me.
Right. Nobody knows more than you about that, but I would just kind of add to the fact that when I first saw the question, I'm thinking, wait a minute, you look at a F4 Phantom 2, I think, was it that the actual name, the Phantom 2?
Yeah, F4 Phantom 2, yeah.
Compared to, let's say, I don't know, an F-16 or maybe a Crusader or A6, they're not thing alike. They're completely different looking
very true.
airplanes. So I don't know the person that was questioning. I'm assuming they just mean like today's fighters.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, because there were some wacky designs out there with variable incidence wings. The wing that used to jack up.
I think that was a Crusader that they had the Navy jet.
Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly right. And some people thought that deltas were the way to go, but they're very high drag. You need a lot of power when you're maneuvering a delta around. So other people had other ideas, and they've not many of them actually fought in real-time battles because we haven't really had a modern jet battle except perhaps in the Middle East, and so we haven't really had a chance to really compare in actual combat conditions a lot of these aircraft. So a lot of it's still an unknown.
Yeah.
I have a confession. I think
Go
I'm
ahead.
very much like, I think it's Captain Owl. They kind of all just look like gray, noisy things, and I can't identify a single one of them based on.
It's because
you
you're
can put them
not putting
all
the
like in a
effort
lineup,
in.
and
Yeah.
I have no.
Well, if it's black and white, it's a
And
penguin.
they all look like penguins to me. There you go.
A lot
It's
of
just
that
because-
is area rule, so that you reduce the transonic drag problems. That's why they're fat
To be-
in the middle.
To be fair, I haven't ever tried to learn the differences between any of them, but
See,
I think it's just
Well,
because
they
you
were
don't
pretty clever.
care.
Shingles doesn't care.
Shingles doesn't care.
Stephanie doesn't care.
I think we have always kind of had these like pods of airplanes and design characteristics moving along. Like if you compare an F-18 and an F-15, there are some. They're not the same airplane, but there's definitely some similarities to kind of how the inlets are shaped and the general wing plan form is. And even if you go back, like Captain Jeff, you were mentioning the F-8. Like the RA-5, the F-8, the A-7, those are all kind of like high wing, single tail tubby looking airplanes. So I don't know. I always kind of thought that was like, as we continually learn new things and it kind of drives our design optimization into a certain area, then all the airplanes end up looking very similar because that's the most optimum that we can make the design based on our current tool set.
Or the government that comes up with a design, a requirement that we need you to make something that will be really good at this.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jeff, because so many of those the designs are driven by the government's, latest idea as to what they want to have in the front line.
And it turns out a lot of the
look
times,
at the first the 117, the Nighthawk. That was didn't really take advantage of the computerized designs we have nowadays for stealth. So it looks very boxy. It's like a Volvo. It's a horrible looking aeroplane, but it performed a great job. But nowadays, of course, they can make them look much sexier.
It's a great airplane to make a Halloween costume out of because you can make it very easily with cardboard boxes.
Yes. And of course, Tim Van Ram, you ever heard of that guy? He says, he's in our live audience. Another design factor is, will the chicks dig it?
Oh, don't know.
See, that's an argument that I get into regularly. Is that I think that the F-86 is like the most elegant looking jet we've made, and I just feel like we're going down this path of, as we add performance, we're removing visual appeal to our airplanes. But I'm in the minority in that, based on the people that I talk to.
Yeah, the people that are looking at the requirements for fighting a successful war are probably going, well, I don't care what it looks like.
Oh yeah. No, I agree with that. I'm just saying, like, when an F-35 flies by and an F-86 flies by, I'm like, man, the F-86 looks really good.
It was an awesome
but I don't.
You're into the aesthetics.
Yeah.
I think we all agree with that. Okay, finally, we're going to address this from our good friend and voiceover for our intros every week, Radio Roger. He's a real radio and television celebrity in the New York market. He sent in some audio feedback regarding the LaGuardia Expressway Visual Approach Runway 31.
Greetings, APG crew and listeners. Driving along the Van Wyck Expressway, I'm always surprised by planes making a tight turn before landing at LaGuardia's runway 31. A little research turned up a map of the expressway visual approach, which is much more curved than I even realized. In fact, at the beginning, it looks like an approach to runway 4 before it starts veering to the right and then to the left. So why this S-shaped pattern? Is it because of a conflict with JFK traffic? And is this unusual? I always assumed that commercial flights are lined up with their runways miles away from the airport. Does this present challenges or risks? And my last question, it's called a visual approach. Does that mean there's a different approach under instrument-only conditions, or is runway 31 shut down altogether? Well, I'll sit back and wait for your wisdom. This is Radio Roger, over and out.
Okay, well, I'm not sure you're going to get any wisdom from us, but we can kind of help a little bit.
Jeff is the LaGuardia expert, though.
I used to be. It's been years since I've flown into LaGuardia, but I love this approach. This is my favorite approach into LaGuardia. And there's the approach plate that Liz has set up for us, the Expressway Visual Runway 31. And yes, Roger, you are correct. You'll see in the bottom right-hand corner of that the John F. Kennedy International Airport. And when LaGuardia is landing, because the winds are out of the northwest and favors runway 31 for landing, Kennedy is also landing runway 31, and or they could be landing other runways as well. But yes, those two airports are very close together, and so the expressway visual is designed to stay out of the way of the John F. Kennedy International airspace as much as possible. And it is a very, very fun approach. And you asked whether or not that was the only, if you can only do it in visual conditions. Yes, the expressway visual, you have to have, I think it's 3005, I think are the weather mins. I have to look it up, actually. But there are other approaches when the weather is below visual meteorological conditions. where there's from what I remember when I used to fly in there all the time, there was a localizer approach to runway 31. There's probably an RNAV as well. I'm looking it up right now as we speak. Let me look at the approaches to runway 31, and right now they're showing the loc, runway 31. They have some RNAVs, 3 RNAV approaches to runway 31, and of course the expressway visual. And so yes, there are ways. They don't shut down runway 31 when it's in instrument meteorological conditions. It's a fun approach, keeps it nice and tight in. It does, as you said, look like you're coming in for runway 4. You hit the tanks or the dials, I think it's called, as the fixed dials. But there you see those little tanks. It says twin white tanks. It used to be they were painted in a different color, but I guess they're white tanks now. And then you hang a right and you follow the expressway, the Long Island Expressway, an actual road. And you descend and you hang a left around the north end of the Flushing Meadow Park and the World's Fair and all that. You can see all that stuff clearly when you're doing the approach. And then you hang it around the City Field, the what used to be called Shea Stadium for the Mets. And you can also see the where the what is it called, the Open, the tennis U.S. Open. I forgot what the official name for that is, but you can see all that
part
complex
of
over there.
Flushing Meadows.
Yeah, and then you just roll out, and it's a very short approach to that point. That's why it's so much fun. And coincidentally, and this is like kismet, a good friend of ours, part of our APG community, Graham Fig, sent me some video of the expressway visual. Now, he was not flying it. He is a corporate pilot, but he was sitting as a passenger on the left side of the airplane behind the wing of a Acme Airbus, looks like a 320 or something. And he's filming this on the visual approach. So, Liz, why don't you go ahead and put that video up and we can watch. Yeah, it's in the, yeah. No problem. Here we go. And I think you just click on it and it should start running. No, it's not working? There we go. Expressway visual approach runway 31. And we turned, well, you can't hear the music anyway, but he's got talking about the boy from New York City. It's got some great music in the background. I think Manhattan Transfer. So he's showing the visual 3-1 approach plate, and we'll soon see some footage outside of the window that he's taking for us, and it gives you a really good idea of what it's like to fly this approach. It's lots of fun. Here we go. You see the left wingtip of this Airbus, and that's part of the World's Fair in Flushing Meadow Park, as you see,
City
in the
Field.
globe. And soon you're going to start seeing there's the PGA, the tennis open, the tennis center, Arthur Ashe Stadium, and then of course there's the what used to be called Shea Stadium, and in the background, just above the wingtip, you can see Manhattan Island and the New York City and the skyscrapers. And over there's again the baseball stadium, Shea Stadium. I don't know if you saw it, but there was a little glimpse of the runway here. They're just aligning with runway 31, and it's right here. It looks like it is a nice, lazy approach, but it's quite intense. It's a very short final, not quite as short as the river visual at Washington National, but it's still one of the more challenging visual approaches. And then we're coming in, and now you can see on the left, below the wingtip there, are the terminals of the LaGuardia International Airport. And here we go. We're about to touch down. And there, we're on the ground. The spoilers are up, and it's going into reverse. And shortly we'll be pulling off to the left. Oh, there's a hole. You're right, Liz. There's a hole in the engine and also in the wing. This is an emergency situation. And he's going to pull off on a taxiway Papa, I believe, which is just shy of where the intersection of the other runway is, the 90-degree runway.
Jeff,
And,
I noticed there's a very good, well laid out ground track to follow down the expressway and round City Field, over Flushing Meadow Park to line up. But unlike the Canarsie approach into JFK, there, apart from being dials at 2,500, there's no height guidance at all.
No. Now, on this one, as opposed to what you're just referring to and going into Kennedy, they're built into most of the flight management system computers is a vertical path. So, and we have the little vertical football, I like to call it, that kind of shows you where the descent path is calculated. And so you kind of have some guidance all the way around for your descent path. But I don't think you have that with the Canarsie or the RNAV to
well, the Canarsie RNAV you would.
Okay.
In an Airbus, it would give you an artificial glide path. But in the days when we did it on just the VOR, we used the VOR DME. We used to fly, using the height per mile. There used to be a little chart telling you what height you're supposed to be at as
recommended
you pass
altitudes
to give you some guidance.
Yeah, on this one, maybe a while ago it had the same kind of a guidance where, at this point you should be at this altitude. But now with our modern avionics and flight management systems, it gives you, it's not an RNAV approach, but it does give you that vertical guidance.
Interesting.
And I've always flown it. Now this one kind of did what I see a lot of people doing, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just the way they interpret how that should be flown. But I've always kept it on the higher side and made it more of a rounded turn to final instead of an angled turn to final like this one we just witnessed, and kept it a little bit on the higher side coming in over it, and then just dropping that altitude as necessary to get on the glide path toward the end. But that's just my technique of flying the expressway visual. I don't know about you, but in a transport category aircraft, I don't like getting down low too early and then putting a lot of power in, having your pitch, deck angle up and kind of dragging it in and until you reach that descent point for the glide path and coming down. I like to keep it all nice and easy, or like in the same glide path all the way around. Yeah. You know what I mean? Keeping my energy options available to me. But I'm not criticizing the way this person flew the approach, but that seems like most of the people do that, because I've watched many times waiting for takeoff on runway 31, watching people coming in. I'm thinking, wow, they're really dragging that in. And I've always kept it kind of a constant descent all the way around. But,
cool.
Yeah. But, the last time I did that was the last time I'll ever do that in my career. And that was many years ago, because we haven't been flying into LaGuardia in the Mad Dog or the 717 in quite a number of years. So that's pretty much the only thing I miss about that airport, actually. But yeah, well, the terminals are. I was so excited, Liz, when she said, well, it's all been rebuilt now and it's all really nice. And so there were all this hype about the new LaGuardia airport. And I finally asked somebody that has flown up there recently, I said, so what did they do with the runways and the taxiways? And they said, nothing. It's all the same as it was before. I went, oh, okay. The terminals themselves are really nice.
They are very nice. Yeah.
But
beautiful.
As far as I'm concerned, the stuff that really is important to me, they haven't changed anything. So
I don't know how much there is that you could change. It's a pretty small.
Yeah, there's really not much you can do, is there? I'm not sure what I was thinking that they could do. Like maybe extend the runways another couple thousand feet.
Into the water? More?
Yeah, Rikers Island, you have to move that out of the way, that
need
prison.
That
because it's kind of in the way. Anyway, so that's a great way to end the show. Thank you very much, Graham, for sending that in. And I told him, I said, can I use that video? Because this is perfect, because we had some other feedback regarding this expressway visual approach. And he said, oh, yeah, let's do that. Okay, so it's time to wrap it up. Let's talk about the website, airlinepilotguy.com, which is a place you can go to learn a lot more about our podcast and the community, which is the most important part of all this is the community. And you can learn more about the plane tales. Captain Nick goes and puts extra information and pictures and everything else on the plane tales. Definitely a labor of love. And we have like people that read these things called books, which I think you have to open up in their paper and you have to read words.
Bifurcation.
And stuff. Yeah, bifurcation. Oh, Tiffany, our librarian, Tiffany added that one that you requested, Captain Nick.
Oh, broken
Sam Dawson and his relative. Yeah. So that we have that. We have information about merchandise and, gosh, so much more. There's a lot of stuff over there. Head over there to airlinepilotguy.com and check it out. And we're also on social media. And Stephanie's going to tell us about that.
I will. We're going to start it off today with Twitter. We are at APG Crew, and you can find all of our individual Twitter handles pinned to the top of that page. If you want to post lengthier topics and comments, you can head over to facebook.com/airlinepilotguy, join our community there. And don't forget to check out our Instagram. I think Nick is still posting his lovely images.
Well, no, I've got
not anymore.
My Instagram.
No, he's posting images of ISIS.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
There's some stuff for you to peruse on our Instagram. We're also APG Crew there. And, that's kind of just scratching the surface. If you want to take the deep dive into the shower. Well, no, maybe not. Maybe
Who
it's a
doesn't?
little personal. But anyway, he's going to tell you about Slack.
I think he is. Hello, tell us about Slack.
Okay, but I'm dripping wet.
I know. We're used to that. Come on over here and, how many times have I told you? Put a towel on, please. Okay, come on over here and tell us about Slack.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share news and ideas, we suggest episode and plain tales topics, we plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com. Or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack.
All right. Thank you very much, Hillel. We always appreciate you telling us about Slack. Turn the
Oh, yeah. Delta P.
The microphone's still on, Hillel. Okay.
We haven't had a good Delta P story in a while.
We have not.
No, it's odd, isn't it? We
Yeah.
seem
Let's
to go
see if
through phases.
Yeah, I think I need to find, let's see if this works. Delta P. No, it doesn't work. Oh, well.
And on that terrible disappointment.
Just one of a few minor disappointments in the technical aspect of this particular episode. Anyway, we also want to thank our producer, Liz, for all the hard work that she does and the slides.
It's Liz's day.
Did you see all those fancy slides that she did? We're doing something new. And
Very
yes, what was it? Yesterday?
Yesterday.
It was a very important day for Liz. Her birthday. She's 29 years old again.
Love it.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. So thank you for everything. And we love you, and we love all of you out there listening, honestly. And we do appreciate the fact that you keep us motivated to keep doing this show. And until next time, we're wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Talons, Douglas.
Cheers, y'all.
Bye, everybody.
Talk to you the next time.
So long.
Farewell.
And thanks for all the fish.
Peter's name.
It's starting to sound like the trap family.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Von Trapp family.
Recorders off.
Recorders off, and you guys carry on. Talk to our wonderful audience while I go pee.
Yeah, anyone else got any
Oh, yeah.
ideas
Tim
for
Van
a show
Ram and
title?
Super Fred Driver have a couple in the chat. Tim's
Yeah,
are.
I've already
Oh, you got those? Okay.
got those, thanks.
APG 911, yeah. I like Penguin Strike Fighter.
I'm trying to work out what APG 911.
Reno 911. It had to do with the show note,
All of
artwork.
So yeah, there's some good artwork opportunities there with like Captain Jeff's head on that guy with the super tight shorts.
Yeah, Jim Dangle.
Yeah.
Oh,
that'd be
okay.
good.
But
that was the last artwork, though, kind of.
They're police, not pilots.
But isn't it sort of a bit of a riff on also Jeff was having an emergency there at the beginning of the show, so it was like
Oh, that's
APG,
true, yeah.
APG 911, like emergency. Anyway,
Yeah, I liked an even hotter mess just to
that's true.
flow in from
An
last
even
week.
hotter mess.
Yeah.
Some
It'd be funny for
continuity
someone
there.
who's like binging the shows they get.
Even hotter and messier.
Even hot. Now
That'd
with
be good,
more
too.
hot and
In
more
that
mess.
case, I've already done it because we could use the young lady that I produced as an
So you've already got
alternative.
your artwork done.
Yeah, there you go. It's all
Yeah,
done.
I've already done the artwork, Jeff.
What?
He's already done
I've
the
already
artwork.
done the artwork.
Really? What have
You're
we
going to
done?
use the young lady that I produced for last week, and we're just going to change it to an even hotter mess.
Okay, that sounds good.
I'm
To
very
me.
joking.
Fine with me.
I'm not sure
now
Jeff
with-
likes
now
it,
with even
but he
more
may have
hot
just
We
he just
we
lost
do,
the will to
you know,
fight.
that's what they do in the movies, Son
You're
of
right.
Hot Mess. or
Son of Hot Mess.
Bride of Hot Mess.
The bride. Very good. I love it. The
You're right,
bride of
Camacho.
hot-
I just like I'm not fighting it. I'm just
Acceptance.
I'm
That's
okay
great.
with it.
Nip's already got all of Tim's suggestions there. So.
Okay.
And we already got Penguin Strike Force. Penguins.
And Penguin Strike Fighter.
Oh, the penguin. That's a good one.
You think you got something to work with there, Nicholas?
Oh, I think the bride of hot mess is a winner.
Sounds good to me.
Bride of Frankenstein. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Yes,
Thank you,
thank you, guys. You mean so much to us. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you tagging along.
Brilliant.
Bye for
Love you.
now.
Thanks.